It is Friday. John Schaefer, Sammy Long, Brent Sperry with you. We'll be with you until 6 p.m., and there's a lot to get to. Sammy's going to be with us for an hour or so. What do you have on there? So Sammy's in a different studio today. He's up in the L.A. area. And what do you have, like ESPN on or something? I'm watching on YouTube right now.
Oh, yeah.
Look at your studio, but what are you in the is that KFI on here?
I'm in the KFI and Clipper studio. So we're
KFI Clipper studio.
We're taking over for Bill Handel today. That's
hilarious.
what we're doing.
All right, well, you got a good setup over there. All right, there's a lot to get to, Sammy. This Yu Darvish update that Fletch just kind of teased a moment ago that was in Kevin Acee's reporting today is not really much of an update. I think we'll get to Preller in a second, but I think the update on Darvish is he's going to be around. I think he's mentoring in Japan a little bit right now, and then that's basically the role he's going to fill for the Padres. If he wants to be around the club, he's certainly able to do it. His contract has not yet been voided. I think there's still an intent to void that contract. Now, that's a big deal, I think, to the Padres because that's a lot of money. It's like anytime, the analogy for voiding the contract, Sammy, would be like, let's say because you really wanted to watch the Super Bowl this past year, let's just say the Chiefs were in it. You're like, yo, I'm getting a $2,000 TV. Yeah. And then after the game, you're like, I should have bought a $400 TV. And now there's no return policy. But to get out from underneath the $2,000 TV would be massive. Just like getting out from underneath the $40 million that they owe Yu Darvish. I just feel like for a team like the Padres, that would be really significant. We'll see if they get that or not in the days and weeks ahead.
Yeah, it feels like so far, at least, it's contingent on whether the Padres get that fifth starter that they really need so badly. Because I don't know, John, if you saw there was an ESPN article today on all 30 MLB teams kind of stacked, and the Padres were actually 13, and they did a thing where they ask a question for every team, like why the heck didn't something happen? And the Padres was why the heck didn't they have a fifth starter? And you feel like they would shoot up from 13 to certainly being in the top 10 if they had that fifth starter. And that's why I know everyone kind of got excited, because you're looking at it as, well, Yu Darvish had a big contract. And part of the problems last year with the Padres, and I know a lot of people were critical, I was critical, but to be fair to him, Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish were making some of the most money on the team, and Joe Musgrove didn't play last year, and Yu Darvish missed a significant chunk of the season and then was never really himself. So to be fair to him, they kind of had their money tied up in the wrong places. If you get that money back and are able to kind of go, not big game hunting, but go get a quality starter that could apply to this back end, I think it does wonders for the team, because I don't know how free they are to just be spending money, especially with the potential sale of the team looming if Darvish doesn't give back this contract.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you. And it's like, we said this yesterday a little bit. I think I've said it at times with you, and then I've said it at times, later in the afternoon, where it's like, I don't even know, there's so many things that are unanswered right now. It's ownership. It's AJ Preller. It's fifth starter. It's DH. There's just some things out there. Now, I think a lot of teams have outstanding items on their wish list. It just feels like for the Padres, maybe it's one or two too many. Now, the good news is, in Kevin Acee's reporting here after he joined me yesterday on San Diego Sports 760, is his reporting suggests, Sammy, that we could have resolution on AJ Preller within hours, essentially. He wrote last night, 3 people familiar with the process indicated a deal is possible by the time the Padres hold their first full squad workout on Monday. Well, that's not very far away, obviously, with it being Friday afternoon. We won't have a show on Monday. Is that correct, Brent? We're not here on Monday. It's a holiday. So maybe it gets done. Maybe they send out a 6 p.m. release on a Friday evening and just say we're done with it. Maybe it's resolved over the weekend. But it's one of those things, Sammy, we just want to check that off. Because the ownership thing and the team, like you just said, is 13th in baseball or projected to win 80 games. Just check this off, cast it to the side. And if they do that, I think that's a win heading into spring training in the season.
To your point about every team has questions, including the Dodgers. Every team has a thing or two that if you're a fan of that team, you'd like them to change.
I agree.
But with the Padres, you outlaid it last week. It's ownership, selling the team, AJ Preller's contract, lack of a fifth starter, and maybe lack of an extra bat. And instead of us talking about, and everyone in San Diego talking about maybe a lack of an extra bat and a lack of a fifth starter, we're talking about ownership, which could be getting done here soon per reporting, but we won't know. To your point, the AJ Preller one, if you have 4 problems on this team, AJ Preller could get this thing signed, and hopefully per Kevin Acee's reporting, this thing is done by early next week, because it feels like a kind of a crazy narrative going into spring training that doesn't have to be a narrative. It's so there. All you got to do is put pen to paper. And we've highlighted the last couple of weeks about, it seems like it's a hold up on Preller's end. And if you're the Padres, I'm sure the press the first week, I mean, we were all talking about it. Every reporter has been asking AJ Preller and everyone who's speaking to the media about this. I'm sure at some point you're kind of like, this is a headache that we don't need to have. And it's kind of embarrassing that this isn't done yet. Let's get this thing done and then focus on what's on the field with the starter and the bat. I'm with you. It feels like unneeded problems for a team that has a couple problems of its own.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me, because we heard it yesterday. Remember, like, we reacted to it. I'm like, this doesn't sound exactly great. It didn't sound terrible. We didn't say he's out. There's no chance he's coming. But we didn't say that, but it just sounded very iffy in real time when you heard his back and forth with the media. Like, if it happens or not, or whatever he said, something along those lines. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But then Kevin joined an hour later and was like, as crazy as it sounds, because we've talked about this for 4 months, there is still a belief that this deal is going to get done. And then he followed that point with some of the reporting last night where he said 3 people with, direct knowledge of the negotiation say it could be done on Monday. Here is my guess at the end of the day, because Kevin led us down this path yesterday. It's a money holdup. It's like you're on a deal that pays you. Like, let's just say right now for our listeners, you're making $60,000, and you're putting food on the table, but you feel like your worth is more than that. And all of a sudden you've created some leverage where you're like, you know what? I don't need to re-sign the $60,000 deal. I could go across the street and make 80. That's kind of life changing. If you can put $20,000 more in your pocket and maybe, benefit your family in some form or fashion, then you're going to drive potentially that hard bargain. I do think essentially this is a money play. Years, maybe, but it's like, if you feel like you've done a good enough job and you've gotten the team to the postseason back-to-back years with 90 wins, and they want to extend you and keep you steady in salary. And I don't know if they did or not. Maybe they offered him a 10% bump. He's like, I'm deserving of a 50% bump, and I'm making it up. But at the end of the day, like anything, a lot of life comes down to money. It's like, if you're making 60, you might want to leave for 80. If you're making $20 an hour, you might want to make $30 an hour, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, maybe AJ Preller just kind of drove the hard bargain, is going to get what he wants or close to what he wants. And so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, who cares? Padres are paying players $25 million plus per year. If they give AJ Preller another $500,000 per year, or $1 million or 1.5 per year, the franchise should be fine, right?
Exactly. And you talk about leverage. I think that plays into it a little bit. Is that AJ Preller is sitting there going, well, you're selling the team, so it doesn't seem like you're outfitting a ton of money out. You're ideally in any business, if you're selling something, you'd like the books to be clean and most attractive for whoever's coming in, so you get the best offer. You went with Craig Stammen, who I'm not ripping, could end up being a great manager, but was certainly a cost-effective manager, who, by the way, AJ Preller handpicked by convincing him to get into the process when he wasn't even a candidate, and honestly having to convince Craig Stammen to want to take the job. And it's like, so if you're sitting there, AJ Preller, to your point about, we don't know any of the money issues and what's going on and where the contract, what the offers were, but AJ Preller has a lot of leverage. You traded a lot of the farm system, you handpicked the manager. It seems like they're letting you do your job, so you should request the most money possible. I'm sure that was the holdup, but hopefully, again, this is something that gets resolved, and it's kind of an issue that we're done talking about.
Yeah, and I still think, like, if I were the Padres, would I have preferred to have it done before Preller spoke with the media in Peoria? I would. Like, he spoke yesterday, and if it is true,
FanFest.
Yeah, and FanFest, good point. I mean, why not just get it done before both of these pretty public events, where if you're actually going to get it done by Monday, why wouldn't you have just done it by like Thursday? That's kind of in my head a little bit. Like, what is the last part of the process that is preventing the deal from being signed that you couldn't have gotten it done 2 weeks ago or 2 days ago? Right.
You said at the beginning of this week, remember when we got bad news that Fernando Tatis, showed up to training camp and was hurt. And we've seen this week. Corbin Carroll, Francisco Lindor, big news have come out around the league of guys injured showing up to camp. This would have been the perfect thing for the Padres to announce. Hey, guess what? AJ Preller signed. That's a great day one open at training camp that I think a lot of people would have celebrated. To your point, it feels odd that you kind of had to go through this hassle, assuming it gets done per reporting by Acee. You have to go through this hassle and people wondering if there's dissension between Preller and ownership just to get the deal done a week later. Feels like a lot of this could have been avoided.
All right. So again, the Padres, it's pitchers and catchers have reported the full squad workout, I guess, is going to start on Monday. And then you're just a day or, a few days away from spring training games. Now, again, when in terms of like what's playing out right now, I think one of the significant stories of the spring is going to be the WBC, because you're going to have players leaving camps. And like it was reported also today by Kevin, that players like Machado and Tatis, Bogarts and others, they're going to leave spring training by March 1st. And then, of course, they'll report back whenever their WBC run is over. But, it's going to be about 2 weeks of time where you have the team together, because you don't have the full squad until Monday. And now you'll have spring training games by the end of next week. So you're going to have the team together for 10 or 14 days, and then they'll go their separate ways, and then they'll all come back together. Now, this isn't just a Padres thing. I think on one hand, it's good because it's not just a Padres thing. Dodgers have it, Giants have it, right? Every team is going to have players in the WBC. The part of it that makes it a little bit, I don't know if scary is the right word, is we saw this in 2023, Sammy. 2023 was a disaster in San Diego with the Padres. I mean, they never got going until it was way too late. Maybe it's easy to just blame the WBC, but I don't know. It's something that's at least in the back of my mind. Like, is history going to repeat itself because they didn't have like this cohesive team out of camp because they started so slowly? Again, all teams have to deal with it. I'm sure they have an approach to it, but hopefully they can navigate it better this time than they did 3 years ago, and they didn't even make the postseason.
The one thing I would say as a pro for the Padres with that, because I think you're right. I think it disrupts. Athletes are such on a schedule, especially baseball, where there's so many games. Like, routine is kind of king. That team had a lot of new players with it, and a collection of guys coming in that needed to mesh. Whereas this team is a lot of the same. I mean, you saw them down the stretch of the season last year. Yeah, a couple pieces taken back. No Robert Suarez, no Luis Arias, a couple guys. But I don't think you're injecting a ton of new lifeblood. Unfortunately, I wish they would have been a little bit more aggressive, and maybe they still will be with the starting pitching market. But this team is played together for a long time. So True. I think it's probably a little bit less of a problem, hopefully less of a problem. But to your point, we didn't think it'd be a problem with the 2023 team, and it certainly was.
If you missed our conversation yesterday with Kevin Acee, we will share that with you coming up at 3 p.m. here today. Much more in the Padres over the course of the next few hours. By the way, for the first time this week, I was able to lock down a bracketologist. So I'm in a very good mood. DJ Bauer, Bowertology.com. Like, that's a good name. Bowertology.
Bowertology.
Like, can you just do that?
Makes sense.
Can you do it with any last name? Can you do like Longatology? Not as good.
Schaefertology. Schaefertology.
It's not terrible, but the B helps because bracketology into Bauer, like he's got the B and the R. So anyway, DJ Bauer, he wrote like 15,000 words on the bubble. I kid you not. And he will join us coming up at 3:30 with more on San Diego State's quest to reach the NCAA tournament and a look at the Mountain West as well. Speaking of the Aztecs, will they get Magoon Guath back for tomorrow's game? We've got an update there as the Aztecs get ready for Nevada. We're here until 6. We've got giveaways for you today as well. In fact, we're giving away tickets for Tuesday's game against Grand Canyon. Is that right, Brent? Even with Monday off, we're giving away tickets for Tuesday's game against Grand Canyon. We've got tickets to see Charlie Puth as well at Viejas Arena on April 22nd. Stay with us on San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760. John Schaefer, Sammy Long hanging out. Sammy's going to hang out until around 4 p.m. today. And I'll take you behind the curtain. I think he might bail on the bracketology interview, and I don't blame him because bracketology is kind of like my thing. Now, I don't have like a website, and I don't want to. I just like to know like where do the Aztecs stack up, and I'm intrigued by it in general. What do you got, Brent?
You won't understand this because it's a movie reference. Sammy might, but co-hosts on this show and bracketology are like drummers on Spinal Tap.
Yes.
What
goes to 11, baby.
In the movie Spinal Tap, they kept going through drummers because they would all accidentally die from weird things. So they kept getting new drummers every single time. And now it's like every time there's a bracketologist on, whoever the co-host is like, nope, I'm out.
Dude, that's actually a really good point. Listen, if there's ever a day where there's like a co-host, I'll have to talk to the next like official full-time co-host, and we'll come up with a bracketology plan. Like if the next co-host is vehemently opposed to bracketology like Jim, I'd probably respect that person's wishes more than Jim's because I'm like, it's Jim, whatever. I'll do what I want. But in the future, we'll see what the person wants to do. Anyway, speaking of the Aztecs, Magoon Guath. So Brian Dutcher was on yesterday. He joins us every Thursday at 6 for the Brian Dutcher Show. And I thought it was somewhat surprising that he shared that there is a scenario where Magoon would return for tomorrow. He's been out with a hip flexor. He followed up on this with the media earlier today, Sammy, and said that they'll see how Magoon does today in practice, how his body responds. He's practiced the last 2 days. Here's the other good news on Magoon. He's no longer wearing a knee brace. So he's over 10 months removed from knee surgery. He's out of the brace. I think the recommendation was to have him in it for 9+ months. He's well past that point. At this point, the issue right now is not his knee. It's his hip that has kept him out for the last, I don't even know, 3 or 4 weeks. So LZ Harrington, it sounds like he's a week off, according to Brian Dutcher last night. But Magoon Guath could return as soon as tomorrow. And we'll see what that means, Sammy, for the Aztecs when they host Nevada tomorrow night.
I'm excited for this game. I mean, you're talking about a 7-game stretch here. We were kind of talking about it yesterday. Like, what did the Aztecs have to do? Do they have to be 7-0 to get an at-large bid? 6-1? Could they get in it with 5-2, depending on who they beat and who they lose to? But I mean, this Saturday Nevada's going to bring it because big performance last time on the road by San Diego State. I think the thing that stood out to me looking back at that game, that was the first game this season that Miles Byrd was very aggressive. And he took on a really aggressive kind of, not just I'm going to play defense and try to hit threes and kind of let Reese Dixon Waters and LZ Harrington at the time and BJ Davis, everyone get theirs, which was, the selfless thing to do. So you credit Miles Byrd. But we all know this team is the best when Miles Byrd is becoming that elite scorer. And I think against Nevada, he kind of unlocked that, was really aggressive in that second half in a tight game. Getting Magoon Guath back, if that happens, is huge because I thought Farrell Compton, Miles Heide, these guys, Tay Simmons has really kind of stepped up in the meantime. But none of those guys, maybe Tay Simmons in a year or two, has the offensive capability from a front court perspective that Magoon Guath can have. So it'll be exciting to see him back in the lineup. And again, with not a lot of room for error the next 7 games, you want as many reinforcements as possible. So Magoon Guath being back, and then hopefully LZ Harrington in a week is a big deal.
And consider this: like a year ago, with 7 games to play, they lost Magoon Guath. He went out due to injury at Utah State. It was a massive blow. They did not play as well, obviously. They've played, I think, better this time around without him than they did that time around without him. Of course, it's a different team. He did return last year for the NCAA tournament, but it was too late. I thought he had flashes in that game, honestly, against North Carolina, where the Aztecs did not play well, where Magoon was able to hold his own. But the difference this time around is you're not returning for a 1-game winner take all. Like, hopefully he returns and improves and gets back into that game shape over the course of the next few weeks. So, like, Magoon a year ago, you returned for North Carolina in the NCAA tournament. Like, what was realistic there? He wasn't
a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, you're not going to score 25 points and grab 12 rebounds. That's a lot to expect. But now with a month, it doesn't have to be perfect against Nevada or Grand Canyon. Of course, they need to win these games. But, like, can he keep improving? Because if he keeps improving and getting healthier and more into game shape, I really think it lifts their overall ceiling. I mean, this guy at his best, this player at his best, is a top flight performer in a league like the Mountain West. He was the defensive player of the year last year and missed 7 or 8 games. So getting him back, if he's healthy, it has significant possibilities, I would say, for the Aztecs.
John, I'm curious in your thoughts on this. Do you think, and I totally agree with you, that for this team to reach where they want to go, which is far into March and into April, I mean, you're going to need Magoon Guath. He's one of the most talented players on the team. There's a reason that Michigan and Kentucky were offering massive NIL deals to try to go get him. But do you think in the short term, in terms of tomorrow, let's say he's back, we have seen this offense be a little bit more free-flowing in the last month or so without him. I think they've had less spacing issues. Do you think you could see a little bit of a trouble offensively with him trying to insert back into it, or do you think it's seamless?
I don't think it's seamless, because anytime you're without a player for a period of time, I don't think it'll be seamless. I would say this. He's unlikely to play the type of minutes that will change everything on your offensive side. Now, I do think he changes a lot defensively just when he's in there because of his shot blocking and length ability. And I think offensively, he's dynamic. I mean, he could just throwing him out there, he could make 2 or 3 plays that nobody else is making, whether it's by the rim or just shooting a 3. So, I mean, I'm completely making this up. Anything over 20 minutes would shock me. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 10 or 12 minutes if he returned tomorrow. So because it's unlikely to, impact the entirety of the game, I don't think I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, a player like Magoon Guath is so skilled that, well, he doesn't have to be perfect. Just, a tip in at the rim, or you just throw it to him in the mid post and he just turns and scores. He's just everything comes easy to him. It really does. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be seamless. But again, even him at 50%, I'm telling you, could impact the game at both ends. And we'll see what he looks like come tomorrow night. And I do think getting out of the knee brace is massive, because that's a hindrance. Like I'm sorry. I don't care what anyone says. That's going to impact your ability. I think you get out of that, and that could have a really positive, impact on Magoon tomorrow. All right, coming up at 3:30, DJ Bauer, bracketologist. Just allow me to talk to him. We'll do that coming up at 3:30. We'll hear from Kevin Acee coming up during the show as well. We're going to get back to the Padres. We do have tickets today to give away to see Charlie Puth. We don't have Aztec tickets for Tuesday's game against Grand Canyon, but we do have tickets to see Charlie Puth, and we will give those away here this afternoon. All right, much more for you. We're just getting started. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. Chris Paul announced his retirement from the NBA today. Paul, who was 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time member of the All-NBA team, a 9-time defensive all-team defensive member, 2006 Rookie of the Year, 2-time gold medalist, and he was a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. The Aztecs are back at the Aztecs Arena tomorrow night to take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins at 6 o'clock, and then John will have the tip after 7. Score major deals on top brands at Mattress Firm's President's Day sale. Find your dream mattress today. Their sleep experts are highly trained to find the right one to fit your unique needs. They make sleep easy.
Someone just put in the chat, so Jim's not on this radio show anymore. That is factual. Jim's last show was December 29th, although really his last show was like December 19th. He was working. So Jim moved to Philadelphia. Soft. But he was working. He was driving from his place in the suburbs into like the city. And he did that for like 3 weeks. And then for whatever reason, he like did one random show on December 29th. And that was his last show. So yeah, Jim's no longer on the show. But I think the YouTube channel is still like Jon Jim. I don't even know how to change that. He may forever be on the show. 15 years from now, I'll be on like my 6th different show, and people will be watching on YouTube on the Jon Jim YouTube channel. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So John Schaefer, Sammy Long with you right now. I don't know if you talked about this today, the NBA's tanking issue, which is evergreen. It's like talking about who are the best Padres of all time or the best Lakers. I mean, you could talk about NBA and tanking for 25 years. Here's my general point, because now teams are getting fined. Once again, it's topical and in the news because the way teams are treating, their play in the second half of the year. Here's my overall point, Sammy. How can you run a $1 billion business and treat it like a mom and pop when it comes to the actual competition? How can they not get to the root of this? Seriously, how on earth for 25 years has this been so evergreen for this league that they've never gotten in a room and figured out how to address it? That to me is nonsensical. It's so problematic because this league has had issues with point shaving, officials, tanking. Wildly popular league, second most popular professional league in the country, maybe the third most popular sport behind the NFL and college football in America. And they can't get to the bottom of this. Isn't that kind of quizzical to you? Like, figure this out. You're running $1 trillion business. Figure it out.
It is funny, especially because, well, that's what the NBA draft lottery was designed for. Was designed for that. Even though you could have the worst record in the league, and yeah, you have more ping pong balls, you're not necessarily getting the first pick. I.e., look at last year, the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs had picks 1 and 2, and had some of the worst chances actually in the entire NBA draft lottery to get the top pick. So it is odd that it's happened. I know that the Utah Jazz, the owner, shot back because they got fined $500K after they won. Actually, they ended up winning without Keontae George and Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. It is a tough issue because, I mean, it goes back to it's a long season. Like, as someone who loves the NBA, I watch every Laker game, but I understand people's criticism of the fact the season's too long. Baseball is the same thing with 162 games. But baseball is different in that baseball is so localized, and you are trying to make sure that you have attendance at the ballpark. So if Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis are sitting on a Friday night at Petco, people are like, yeah, all right, well, I don't know if I'm gonna attend that game. Whereas in the NBA, it really does benefit you to suck, like, because the lack of stars coming at the end of the first round, the second round, your top 5 picks are cream of the crop picks. So teams are trying to get it. But to your point, it is odd that they haven't figured this out in a way to really eliminate it, so where fans aren't kind of getting jived out of tickets at the end of the year.
Here's my Brent, what's your thought on it?
I didn't think they fined him enough.
Yeah, $500 grand.
I didn't think that was jack squat.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, they fined Jason Kidd $35 grand just for criticizing the officials. These guys are actually trying to lose on purpose and benching stars that fans are paying big money to come and watch. And they only got 500,000 and 100,000. Respectfully, I don't think that's enough,
dude. I think it's a great point.
If they want to try and if Silver's trying to make a point out of these two teams and send a message to the rest of the league, you got to just come down, bring the hammer down on these guys. You can't go and give them a little slap on the wrist and expect the rest of the league to like tremble
Completely
in their shoes.
Well, okay, hear me out real quick. So now there's this idea of a lottery tournament, which I hate, and let me explain why. So the concept being that the lottery tournament winner, because you're trying to perform in this event, is now drafting at the top of the draft. Because these are the teams outside of the postseason, and now you've got these 10 teams. By the way, only 10 of the, I was about to curse, only 10 of the 30 teams aren't in the postseason. Think about that, right? 20 of them are with the play-in tournament. And now these 10, you could have some type of bracket where the winner is now at the top of the draft. Let me explain why that's a terrible idea. Why on earth would the players on the current, who's the worst team right now in the NBA? Utah's up there, right? So just name a couple teams that are bad. Utah, and who else is terrible?
Indiana, because of injuries.
Indiana.
Sacramento's awful.
Perfect. But why would anyone on Sacramento care to help Sacramento get the top pick in the draft? You could just be out of Sacramento in a whim, either via trade or via free agency. Here's the way to solve it real quick, in my opinion. Here's what solves it. It's the team with the best record that misses the postseason. There is no lottery. You pick first. You had the best record that didn't make the postseason. The team with the worst record in the league, you pick 10th. So from 1 to 10 is based on your standing in terms of not making the postseason. Everyone that's in the postseason are in the postseason. I stack them up 11 through 30 in the way they finish. 1 through 10 is the best team that didn't make the postseason. The worst team that didn't make the postseason, put them 10th. That's their fault.
I like where your head's at, and I see what it does. It takes away the tanking because, right, if you're the Sacramento Kings, you're like, no, we need to acquire players at the deadline because we're not going to make the playoffs to try to go be close to the cut line and make this. My only problem with that, though, is just take a Phoenix Suns, for example. They've been a team. They're currently in the Western Conference play-in, have kind of elevated this season after surprisingly trading Kevin Durant and getting rid of Bradley Beal. Dylan Brooks has been good, and Jalen Green. But they're not a team that you seriously consider as a championship title. They're not going to go beat Oklahoma City. I think it would create more tanking on the cut line. So if you're the Phoenix, if you're a team that you don't think, or you're a Miami Heat, where you're a solid team, you're a playoff team, but you're also not, like, let's be real, you're not winning an NBA championship. I think you would have those teams taking a dive down the stretch to just dip out. But I see where your head's at. I like the thought of you shouldn't just get rewarded for losing as many games as possible. The teams that are competing and trying to make the postseason should get a little bit rewarded for that.
We keep the draft lottery. But what we do is we get rid of the whoever loses more games gets more balls put into the thing. Just for argument's sake, say there's 10 teams that are in the draft lottery. You all have a 1 in 10 shot of getting the number one pick.
I like that too.
No more of this. Oh, well, we lost 40 games, so we should get 40 times more ping pong balls than the team that didn't lose 40 more games than us. No, everyone gets one ping pong ball in the thing. So then it doesn't matter if you've lost 20 more games than the team ahead of you or you guys tied. It doesn't matter.
Well, what about this? I like Brent's point to go further. Because that still opens up the possibility of saying I'd rather have a 1 in 10 shot than be the 10 seed. What if we just say there's 30 teams in the league? Y'all get a ping pong ball. There is nothing you can do. The draft will be determined every single year based on the results of this lottery. Now, what's problematic there is Oklahoma City ends up with the first pick. You could really stack some teams up pretty good, but it's like, why is it that, like I said, you've got these TV partners that have invested billions of dollars in these games. And now you have teams that with intent do not try to win the games that are now televised nationally. That makes no sense. Right?
I think I agree. And Brent, your point about the one ping pong ball per team, I totally agree with. I think it would also help because you have the play-in tournament, which gets, the 7 through 10 seed in each conference. I think if you included the 7 through 10 seeds in the draft lottery,
Right.
it would actually help create it, because you're figuring, although the Lakers don't have the same chance as Oklahoma City to win a title, the Lakers, I don't think they're winning a championship this year, but do have a good roster that could win a round or two. Your top 6 in the West and East are figuring that they have a talented enough roster where they're going to go try to win it. I think whereas a 10 seed, I mean, the Bulls could slide in as a 10 seed. No one thinks the Bulls are giving, Boston or anyone, Detroit at the top, any problems. If you included the play-in tournament as part of the draft lottery, I think there would be less incentive to not try to make the play-in tournament, because you would be hosting a home playoff game or playing in a playoff game, and the fan base would get excited about that.
Yes, right off that. So I was going to say, Sammy, include the stupid, no, not the play-in. Include the NBA Cup. Whoever wins the NBA, no. We go with the one ball per team. Okay, so you have the 1 in 10. But if your team wins the NBA Cup, you get a ball put in the thing. And if it turns out out that you suck, then you get 2 balls in. That's the only way you can get multiple balls put into the hopper, is either you win the NBA Cup and then you end up being horrible, or you just win the NBA Cup and then that's the only way a good team can get in there.
Yeah, again, did Brent just solve the draft process problem?
Here's the thing.
Just write me a check,
if we
David.
could do it in 11 minutes, then the NBA can figure this out. Like the fact that it's been discussed for 20 years since the Trust the Process Sixers, and beyond that, probably, it needs to be resolved in some way. All right, there's a very fascinating proposal out to fix, or would it break, the college football playoff? We'll discuss that on the other side. If you missed our conversation with Kevin Acee, you'll hear that. We've got our Bracketologist of the Week, DJ Bauer, Bowertology, at 3:30, and we're here until 6 p.m. on San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760. John Schaefer, Sammy Long, Brent Sperry. We've got DJ Bauer, bracketologist of the week, joining us at 3:30. There's a thing that I've been texting back and forth with Jim and Darnay about today. There was someone that has like a sports business class. I think he's someone like associated with the NBA, Bobby Marks. And hold on, let me.
Oh yeah, Bobby Marks. He has a good column,
right? So Bobby Marks, who like his work, he might still be at ESPN. But he's got like this class, and the class project was to come up with like branding for new NBA like teams, because they're going to like expand. It's pretty cool. And there's like Vegas, and it's got like branding and marketing and like how they're going to position the team, and Mexico City. And then it has San Diego. It's just for whatever reason, it's making me laugh. It's the San Diego Breakers. Their logo looks like it was done in clip art. Like, it's just like a wave breaking and like a circular orange ball. And the brand is flow, force, freedom, making waves. The San Diego Breakers. Their colors are white, navy, and light blue. And
build the arena, baby.
Yeah, get this thing done. Imagery, waves breaking, surf, using basketball to allude to San Diego's sunsets on the beach. Who says no to that?
That's all the stuff they typed into ChatGPT when it got
1,000%.
1,000,000%.
But in this class, they came up with branding for the Mexico City Jaguars. Just like
the Jaguars.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, their logo isn't terrible.
We can't recycle NFL teams. Like we already have the Arizona Cardinals and the St. Louis Cardinals. We can come up with new names.
At least they actually have Jaguars in Mexico, opposed to like I don't think they're running around Jacksonville.
Right.
That's a good point.
Seattle, of course, it looks like they're just the Sonics in the sports biz class, and then Vegas. They're the High Rollers.
I actually like that.
The High Rollers. We're all in every night. That's their slogan.
Some
Las Vegas High Rollers. We're all in.
The Vegas night. Craps, the Vegas dice.
Yeah. There's some potential. There's some potential there. All right. Is this an amazing, amazing, amazing idea to fix the college football playoff, or the worst idea you've ever heard? The Big Ten has now kind of like, I don't know if it's a leak or not, but it's now out there publicly, their 24-team expanded college football playoff proposal, which only guarantees one spot of the 24 to a team. And that would be the best group of 6 team is automatically in the event. The other 23, it's just top 23 ranked teams. No conference tournaments, no conference championship games. So like Big Ten championship game between Ohio State and Indiana, bye-bye. It's who's ever ranked in the top 23 at the end of the year, plus the 24th guaranteed is a group of 6 teams. There could be more group of 6 teams. If there's 3 group of 6 teams in the top 23, they're in the event. If there's 0, you only have the 1 team. That's the 24th. I don't know exactly how the bracketing would work. Presumably the top 8 get a bye. The other 16 play each other, and then you get to 16, and then you go from there. Right now it's a 12-team playoff. The SEC is proposing 16. The Big Ten wants 24. Is this a great idea or the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
Well, I can tell you who should be doing backflips if this came to fruition is Notre Dame. Notre Dame
every year.
Every year you get rid of conference championships, which is the reason that they get left out of this thing because they are independent and they aren't playing in conference championship games. Listen, I'm all for the expansion. I like what the SEC had at 16 because I think you like take this year. Notre Dame would have been in, Texas would have been in, Vanderbilt and USC maybe, or Vanderbilt. Not that USC or Vanderbilt was winning a national championship, but I'll tell you what's more exciting is USC taking on Oregon than James Madison taking on Oregon, frankly. And with the 24 teams, I think the worry is it dilutes the regular season and that we know that Ohio State and Alabama and some of these schools are simply going to be in it. I'm a big fan of conference championship weekend, but I'm kind of surprised in a 24-team playoff you wouldn't open up a second spot for the group of 6. Now, I'm all for seeing the biggest programs compete and all that kind of stuff. But with 24 teams, you feel like 2 group of 6 teams should get a shot if you have 24 teams going in. The one thing I do really like about the proposal that you laid out in the Big Ten, the big criticism on college football is, I know all 3 of us are massive college football fans. There's too big of a gap. It's like conference championship games happen, and then there's 2-3 weeks, and then there's the college football playoff, and then you have the championship game at the end of January, and it just feels like this thing could speed up a little bit. I like that they're kind of playing through that, and there's not really a gap in between the semester the weeks there. That was kind of behind the proposal. I would so overall, I think 24 might be a little bit too much, but hey, I'm all for more teams going in the playoffs because bowl games, as we know, have kind of been diluted ever since the playoff expanded.
I hate it.
Brent hates it.
I think there's too many teams in it. We already have the problem now in like the SEC and the Big Ten to where there's too many teams and half of them don't play each other for sometimes almost 3 years now because it's taken so long to cycle through that we're going to end up with a bunch of teams in the same conference that are going to, all be undefeated. And guess what? They're not going to play each other. I think by getting rid of the conference championship games, that's just another sly way of them trying to keep more teams out that would resemble a Cinderella. Because this way, if they get rid of conference championships, there's no guaranteed in for a non-Power 5. They can just go and just keep putting in Power 5 teams and say it doesn't matter. If you're just going to go with 24 like that and get rid of conference championships, let's just get rid of conferences. Right. If we're literally just going to take the top 24 out of the top 25 teams in the AP or whatever, then just get rid of conference. What's the point of the conference? Because we're not having a conference championship game or anything. So what's even the point of having the conference?
Did you hear what the first round they would in this proposal? They wouldn't play rivalries or matchups that already happened. So let's say Penn State played Ohio State and they were ranked there. They wouldn't
play in the first round.
They wouldn't play in the first round. So
break it up.
Yeah, it does feel like, Brent, to your point, you actually have more of an advantage if you're a massive program like Texas, Penn State, USC, just name them. Honestly, being by yourself, not a part of a conference, and scheduling your own opponents actually would work out better for you. So I'm with you on that. I'm with expansion, but 24 feels a little aggressive to me. I would hang it around 16.
I remember back in the day, like Rich's theory, Rich Ornberger is like 64. Make it like college
madness.
I mean, here's the one thing. Now, Brent, is 24 teams a lot of teams? Yeah, of course it is. But there are 130 to 140 out there. I get it. It's predominantly tilted towards these power leagues. So that's 50 or 60 of the programs. In the NFL, we let 14 of the 32 in. So like, is 24 that many when you have so many more teams?
I just kind of want to gradually go up.
Yeah, just 16.
We didn't have to go from 60 teams in the tournament in March and then all of a sudden go to 187 teams and just put everybody in there. Just, go from the 12 or 14 that we have now and just, go up to 16 and go up to maybe 18 or 17 and just see how that goes instead of just, adding almost, 15 teams in there and then just hoping that it works out. Because if this just turns out to be absolute chaos, this is going to be worse than like the BCS and like the worst parts of the college football playoff put together.
Well, the problem here, to put a bow on it real quick, the problem is you have 24 teams in. Ohio State's going 7-5 and getting in. The 1 year, every 20 years, they'll go 7-5. They've had like one in my lifetime, and they'll go 7-5 and be in. So, like, are you really looking to reward that?
Dilutes the regular season.
Yeah, now like Michigan, everyone randomly goes 7-5 and they're still in the playoff.
It's going to be the equivalent of everyone bitching at the Saints making the playoffs and getting a home game when they're like 8-9.
Yeah,
yes.
100%. All right, we're going to get back to the storylines coming out of Peoria today at Padres spring training. Plus at 3:30, DJ Bauer, our bracketologist of the week. If you missed Kevin Acee, you'll hear our conversation coming up at 4 p.m. Hour 2 next on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Anderson Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Chris Paul announced his retirement today from the NBA. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team member, and the 2006 Rookie of the Year. And on top of that, he was a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. The Aztecs are back at Vias Arena tomorrow night to take on the Nevada Wolfpack. Our pregame coverage begins at 6. John will have the tip after 7. Choosing the right home service company isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about trusting who's in your home. That's why homeowners count on Anderson for friendly professional service that keeps everything running right. Visit AndersonPHA.com.
All right, John Schaefer, Sammy Long. I'm looking on YouTube. It's just a chair.
I'm here. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. Let me replug this.
How are you talking? The chair is talking to us. We're giving away Charlie Puth tickets.
He's a spooky ghost.
Yeah, what is going on? It's just a chair.
Resetting right here.
Dude, your camera, whatever. You need a new camera. That's my Valentine's Day gift to you.
Hey, I'll give him this. His camera still isn't a third as bad as Jim's laptop.
Oh, Jim's laptop was the absolute worst. And the fact that he wouldn't buy a new one for 50, I guarantee the second he got to Philly, he bought a new laptop because he's working for someone and they're like, you have to have internet on your computer to do the job. You have to have email. Gosh, still bothering me. It's not even here. All right. What's that?
Oh, this is useless, but I'm setting in my camera today because there's a scratch on it.
Yeah, there's a bit of a, I don't feel like you have the same. It's interesting because you and I use the same type of camera. I think like the company or whatever, Instalink or something.
Yeah, Instalink 2 or whatever.
But yeah, you need the upgrade, dude. You need they need to resend you like a camera. So good luck.
We need an endorser with Instalink.
Yeah, we really do. Okay, you referenced this earlier. We've got a bracketologist, by the way, at 3:30. Sammy's going to hang out until 3:30. But you referenced ESPN's win total article for all 30 teams. And it's not overly encouraging, but it's not overly discouraging either if you're a Padres fan. Here's what's interesting. We said Fangraphs gave the Padres, I think they said 79 wins roughly when it came out, which was like, whoa, 79. They won 90 last year. And then there was something called PECOTA, which I think Baseball Prospectus uses. Tried and true. It's been around for forever. And that gave the Padres a win total of 82. And now we see ESPN.com. A number keeps ticking up. It's now 83.3 wins for the Padres. Now, their chance of making the postseason per ESPN.com, Sammy, not great. 40.9%. Their chance of winning the World Series also not great. But then again, they've never done it. They give them a 1.3% chance of making the World Series. Is this too high, too low, just right when ranking the Padres? They say they're the 13th best team in baseball. Too high, too low, just right.
I think it's just right for now. I think if they get a starting pitcher, another starting pitcher, I think they would go in the top 10. I think that but this rotation right now, I understand why the win total dropped from 90. I mean, we talk about it a lot. It's like your top 3 are in theory great. Joe Musgrove, Nick Pivetta, and Michael King. To think that you're getting through a 162 game season without injuries is delusional. It's going to happen. And on top of that, let's just say a best case scenario, they don't get injured. Well, you probably burn their arms out using them so much to get to the postseason to where maybe they're not as effective as they could be come October. So I think it's fair right now. I think it also has something to do with the Diamondbacks and Giants will be better. Giants, kind of full year here, making the big trade mid-season last year, getting a rise. And then the Diamondbacks have a lot of young pieces. I think you wonder about some of the kind of fringe parts, but like Perdomo and Carroll, Marte, they got a big time young rookie Lawler from the outfield coming up. Like they got some stuff there, and Burns coming back as a starting pitcher. So I think it's more to do with the division just getting better and the Padres kind of staying the same. So, but to answer your question, I think it's fair right now. If they get a starting pitcher, I think they would move up. If they don't, I think they're playing with fire and could get passed by one of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to look at it because you say 13th, you're like, well, where does that put them? I mean, it puts them right on the cusp of the postseason is where it puts them because there's 12 playoff teams. Now, again, you'd have to break down how many of these teams are American League teams, how many of these teams are NL
I believe
teams.
they had 5 NL teams above them, if I counted them right.
In that theory, which is very hypothetical, they would actually be in the postseason with the 13th best team potentially in baseball. Now, I guess the issue is, and we've said this now for years, and I don't lose sleep over, well, it's going to be hard to win the division. You could not win a division and win the World Series. We've talked about this ad nauseum. But like right now, they're projecting the Dodgers. ESPN.com, Pacoda had them at 104 wins. Fangraphs had them at 99 to 100, and ESPN has them at over 102 wins. Here's the point. All three of these projections have the Padres between, 18 and 20 games behind the Dodgers. 18 to 20. Now, there have been some years recently where the Padres have been a lot closer than that, where it's been very competitive in the second half of the year. There have also been other years when the Padres have been good, where the Dodgers have run away from San Diego and the division. So, again, I'm not going to lose sleep over the division. If it was 1995, I would. It's just like there's no other way to get in. But since it's 2026, it's just a part of being in the NL West. What do you got, Brian?
There's 5 NL teams.
Yeah, okay, that's what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, so again, I mean, I don't think any of these projections are wrong on the Dodgers. I don't think anyone's like, oh, they got them at 100 wins. That's way high. I mean, if anything, the Dodgers have underperformed in the regular season the last 2 years. They haven't won 100 games. They're almost due for a year in which they win 100 games. And hopefully that doesn't happen if you're a Padres fan. But you always know, Sammy, that there's that distinct possibility that LA could win 100 plus games because they've done it a lot.
And with the Dodgers, if you're a gambler out there, that historically has been, I think the Dodgers learned their lesson when the Padres beat them in 2022. It was a lot of, they were going for the regular season wins total title, and they were unbelievable. Everyone thought that they couldn't be beat, and they kind of ran out of steam. And I think there's something to be said for when you're 20 games up on a division and you're not really playing meaningful baseball for 2 to 3 months. I mean, and there's not much urgency to then just flip the switch back into October. I think that's why the Dodgers got bounced by the Braves. They got bounced by the Padres, and then the Diamondbacks swept them a year later. The last couple of years, to your point, they've been in 90 wins, and each of those 2 years have been projected in the hundreds. I think betting the under on the Dodgers are not trying to burn all their arms. And yes, I get the Dodgers are in a unique spot where they have so much talent on this team that you can put Glasnow and Yamamoto and Snell and give these guys month-long breaks with Fakakta injuries, and your farm system's still so good that you're going to be able to make the playoffs, and the Padres don't have that luxury. But I mean, the Dodgers, I don't think are going to try to run away with the division. Obviously, they would love to try to run away with the division, but I don't think they're going to push their bullpen, their starters at a level to where they can win as many games as possible. So, do I think the Padres have a shot to win the division? No, I think the Dodgers are still going to win it. But the Padres, kind of back to my point about their starting 3 pitchers, you got to find a way, give yourself as much depth as possible to be able to give your Musgroves and Pavettas and King some rest. I know you don't have the resources of LA, but you still got to go give yourself a shot. And that starts with signing a 5th starter.
Well, look at it this way real quick. So the Dodgers' recent World Series championships, right, in this decade, the years that they won a World Series, and 2020, say what you want, and I'll say whatever. I don't really care. But it was a competitive division until the end. Again, short season, right? But competitive division. 2024, competitive division. 2025, even more competitive. The years, though, recently where they've won 100 plus games, they've bowed out in the postseason, right? 2023 to Arizona. 2022 to San Diego. They won 106 games in 2021, lost in the NLCS. They won 106 games in 2019, lost in the NLDS. So, I mean, is that a large enough sample size to be like, hey, you're better suited to be pushed all year? Maybe it's a little like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Fake math. Maybe there's not enough of a sample size, but I kind of buy it. It's like if you win 106 games and you win the division by 24 games, and I know there was 1 year in there they didn't with the whole Giants Dodgers back and forth down the stretch. But like if you win the division by 20 games, like, are you able to quote unquote turn it on? Where if you're in a race all year, you don't have to turn it on because you've been playing with your hair on fire later into the season.
And that's why a lot, I mean, look at last year, Dodgers won the World Series. They played in the wild card round. There's been a lot. The year the Padres beat the Dodgers, they played in the wild card round. The Diamondbacks, when they swept the Dodgers and then went on to beat the Phillies, played in the wild card round. In theory, you want to get your guys rest, and yeah, you want to play less playoff games because you don't want an opportunity to get beat. But at the same time, I think in baseball, especially where football, you have to play the entire slate. Like if college football, you have a couple losses, you're out. In the NFL, you could be the best team in the league through the first half of the season. You get a big injury. You have a 0-4 stretch in a month, and you're on the outside looking in. In baseball, I do think it's just a mindset thing from like a human perspective. If you're not playing urgent baseball for 2-3 months, and then 1 week you're supposed to play urgent baseball, and all these teams have been playing urgent baseball because they've been trying to get in who are playing you, that doesn't always work out for the favorite, which is why I believe that year they lost to the Diamondbacks, both of the top seeds who had buys lost. And it was kind of becoming a trend that all the teams that had buys were losing pretty frequently.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting with baseball because we had never previously seen teams kind of jockeying in the regular season for postseason. Like the Dodgers have done that now, where it's like we don't have to put our foot on the pedal. Typically, you think in baseball, like you're not just like, oh, we'll just like lackadaisically go through a season. Like you think you need to pile up these wins because a smaller percentage of teams make the postseason. But the Dodgers have been so good, they're never a real threat to miss the postseason. Therefore, they can treat their regular season almost like a preseason, and that Padres could never afford to do that. You have one or two things go against you, and all of a sudden you're on the outside looking in. Where LA's had this cushion where they can overcome it. And to your point, they've like scheduled starters being on the IL, where other teams, including San Diego, could never consider doing something like that and getting away with it. All right, DJ Bauer, our bracketologist of the week, will join us coming up at 3:30. If you missed Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, you'll hear a conversation coming up at 4 p.m. Sammy's going to hang out for another 10 minutes or so. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, we've got DJ Bauer, our bracketologist, coming up at 3:30. I don't know how many sports talk listeners really care about what I'm about to say, but I'll say it anyway. So Brent and I have been like obsessively watching the Olympics. Like I'm breaking down, like I know speed skating, like, dude, this guy's got to get out of the box quicker, right? I'm like breaking it down now. Like I'm working the 2030 Olympic Games, wherever they are. Like I'm on that broadcast. But I guess there's this huge controversy. I mean, this is really going in the weeds. The ice dancing?
Yes, I watched this.
So the French team beat the US team. And like we think that you might be able to like fix like American team sports, right? Like we've had like officials that are like in on it, right? We've had whatever the situation with like Donahue in the NBA. You know, every once in a while the outcome of a game comes into question. Like, is this game legitimate? Look at how the T-Wolves treated this recent game where they just sat their starters in the fourth quarter with a lead just because they didn't want to win the game. Well, anyway, the way this whole thing shook out is the French judge scored the American team like so many points lower than any other judge, and then scored the French team so much higher than any other judge. I'm like, that is so obvious. That is so obvious that the event was fixed. Now, the way they do judging in some of these sports is they throw out the top scores and the bottom scores because you have 9 scorers or judges. So that takes away the possibility that one rigged judge could throw the entire event. But still, that is very fishy to me that this event, the French judge says, hey, the French dancers are the greatest dancers ever. And the American dancers who finished a close second are the worst dancers ever. Like, and again, do I really care? Let me answer that. I really don't. But it's like the easiest thing in the world to fix, is it not?
It is.
Like
I watched this, so I'm Madison Chalk, and I forget the guy's name. And they lost by a point, and it was like 123 to 124, something like that. So they barely lost in a sport that is interpreted, off how you're looking at it. It's not this team scored more points than the other. I mean, that was, I can't believe. So the French judge 8 points more. I've always wondered this as a massive boxing fan. Like, you'll have judges, you have 3 judges in boxing, and they'll be from different countries, different cities, different areas. And this is why you'll see controversy in boxing in the UFC, because someone's scorecard will be completely different, and everyone saw a close fight, and then one judge saw it, 10 rounds to 2. You're like, I don't know what fight you were watching.
Yep.
But I saw Madison Chalk say it after. She's like, it turns people off from our sport when people are trying to understand it, and then now you have corrupt judging. Sense. Like,
here's what I would do. Here's how I fix it, Sammy. Put a QR code on the screen worldwide. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, just do it. I mean, because honestly, fan vote probably would be as accurate as these random judges. I'm sorry.
Turn the Olympics into American Idol.
Yeah, exactly. Make it American. I cannot be convinced these judges are scoring this thing properly. They're spinning around doing X, Y, and Z for 2.5 minutes, and then it's like 89.83. Give me a break. They're just completely making this up.
They need automatic balls and strikes.
We need
and they're scoring as it's happening.
Yes.
So there's no way that you're taking it all in.
Just have like AI do it. Seriously, have AI score this thing. We don't do luge and be like, oh, this guy went down fastest, but you know what? The way he handled turn 4, according to the French judge, wasn't good enough. That's the problem with sport that, like you said, with boxing. This has been an issue for my entire lifetime. I mean, there have been boxing matches that have had ridiculous irregularities over the course of time, and it still exists. And it's a massive problem because it takes away from the credibility of the sport. I say the same thing with boxing. Throw a QR code up there.
Right. Seriously. They've always said in boxing and UFC there's less rounds. So corruption happens, but it's obvious to score. I mean, they've always said in boxing, why don't you have live scoring? Like, why don't?
Oh, good point.
And they've thought this as judges too, and like ice skating, things like that. Why don't after every round you see what judge did what? So if you're a fighter, you're like, oh, I'm losing in the 12th round. I have to go get a knockout. I have to go press the pace. Versus these, like, we think we're watching one fight, and then all of a sudden the judges have it completely the other way. And I don't know if it's different figure skating or boxing live when you're not hearing commentators and kind of influencing how you're seeing it. That's certainly been a thing that's been studied, but yeah, it definitely is a bummer because the Olympics have been fun, and now you kind of have this controversy around it.
Here's something I would say about boxing real quick. Like, in what sport, like we judge boxing based on 10-9 rounds, right? Like I won a round, I get a 10-9. Sammy won a round, he won a 10-9. By and large, that's how rounds are
This
treated
is a
in boxing.
knockdown, then 10-8.
Yeah, exactly. There could be 10-8 scenarios, right? But in what sport, if you utterly dominate someone, you just get around? Like in baseball, it's not about winning innings. It's about compiling. In football, it's not about winning quarters. It's like, well, what do you mean the quarters were split 2-2? Kansas City scored 28 points in the second quarter. They won the game 42-14.
That's a great point.
So it's like that also to me has been so like confusing because like you could annihilate someone for a round. That alone should be decisive enough to tilt the overall fight, because who cares if then the next round somebody narrowly edged you? Like you won that first round hand over feet or whatever 100%, and then all of a sudden you lost a close round.
Right, and it's like if a jab or if a round is mostly jabs and someone lands 10-6 and right to your point nothing happens, it's 10-9 versus another round where someone gets buzzed and they're falling back but they never go down.
10-9.
10-9. That has been a massive flaw, especially in the fight game for judging. Every round is not equal, should not be equal.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not enamored with sports that come down to subjective opinions based on. Well, I say that, but I mean, what is the NFL? Flag. What is basketball? Whistle. What is baseball? Strike. Now we're changing a little bit of it. Replay, ABS. But at the end of the day, there's a subjectivity to it. How many games are decided based on, was it a catch or not? Oh, should that have been a holding or not? Oh, how could they blow a whistle there? I mean, a lot are decided that way.
John is so mad at the French right now. He's ready to return the Statue of Liberty.
Yes,
I like the Statue of Liberty. I'll keep it.
It's ours now.
I'm just like, guys, don't be taking ice dancing medals away from us. All right. You don't want to get me angry.
It's okay. We're going to get that hockey medal. It's going to be just fine.
It's going to be fine. Unless the French judge has something to do with it.
Well, at least the medals aren't breaking now. Did you see that the first couple days?
They were like
the gold medals
apart,
were like breaking in half.
What are we doing here, guys?
Sammy, enjoy the weekend, my friend.
Guys, you're the best.
We'll see you Tuesday. Enjoy your what holiday is it?
President's
Enjoy
Day,
your
man.
President's Day. Thank you. Where are we? What month is it? All right. On the other side, Bowertology. DJ Bauer, Bracketologist of the Week. Where does San Diego State stack up? He'll join us next on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by the California Air Resource Board. In NBA news, Chris Paul announced his retirement from the league today. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team, and the 2006 Rookie of the Year. And on top of that, he was a 2-time gold medalist and on the NBA's 75th anniversary team. The Aztecs are back at VS Arena tomorrow night to take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will begin at 6 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 7. California's clean truck check is in effect. Most vehicles over 14,000 pounds, gross vehicle weight rating, operating in California must report, pay fees, and test. Visit arb.ca.gov/clean truck check.
All right, time for our bracketologist of the week. And we're going to head out to DJ Bauer, Bracketology. And listen, I respect the bracketologist that writes. Let me find your tweet, DJ. That said, he wrote 12,000 words this week on the bubble. Like that's incredible, and I appreciate that, especially here in San Diego. So first of all, DJ, thanks for hopping on. Secondly, let's just start with the Aztecs. I mean, they've kind of been in this spot the last 2 seasons. They were the second to last team in the field last year. Right now, I think you have them as the first team out of your field right now heading into the weekend. What do you make of where San Diego State is situated? And thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, as you mentioned, I brand spanking new bracket out this morning in San Diego State. They're really close. They are my first team outside my field right now, but there's just a couple hangups I have about kind of where the state of their resume, their tournament profile looks. Obviously the big one for me is that they just haven't won enough against some of these great teams. You take a look back at what they did in the non-conference. They had 2 big opportunities against Arizona and Michigan, the top 2 teams in the country right now. Obviously, San Diego State got blown off the floor in both of those games, so that's no good. Of course, you split it into the different quadrant buckets. Their only quad 1 win right now is over Nevada. They won that game in Reno. It's a nice win. It's a quad 1 win. But it's not against a team that is currently in the NCAA tournament picture. They're a little bit farther out of it, so that's not super helpful. And they have a home win over New Mexico as well in Quadrant 2. That's at least a team that's a little closer to the NCAA tournament. But they just haven't won too many of these big opportunities that they've had to try to get these numbers that would put them into the tournament field. And so they're close. They're right on the edge for me. They have some of the other numbers that you would expect of a tournament team. They just kind of need to bulk up some of those bigger wins, and they are going to get some opportunities down the line in Mountain West play to do just that.
DJ Bauer with us right now, again, has a website, Bracketology, where you can check out his recent bracket, Bracketology.com. All right, to go down further that path with you, and I know like the bubble is a moving target because it's contingent on like not just your play, but other teams' play. Are teams winning at a high clip that are on the bubble? Are they losing at a higher clip? But when you look at what the Aztecs have remaining, I don't know if you have it in front of you. I don't even have it in front of me. But, Utah State at home, they got to go to New Mexico. They still have Grand Canyon and Nevada here. Those would be quad 2 opportunities in San Diego. They have 7 regular season games remaining. I guess I would ask it like this. Like, where would Aztec fans feel good about San Diego State? Like 6-1 with the win over Utah State? Like, where would you feel good about the Aztecs moving forward?
So 3 games that they have in a row, February 25th, February 28th, March 3rd, versus Utah State, at New Mexico, at Boise State. As it stands, those are all quad 1 games. And that's the biggest part of the team sheet for San Diego State, where they're lacking at just 1-4 in quad 1. So honestly, if they take care of the other games that they've got, and at Colorado State is certainly, a tricky game. They're still a decent team, though they're not quite the team that they've been in recent years. And you can't overlook either of Nevada or Grand Canyon at home, because those are, 2 good teams as well. Obviously, Grand Canyon beat San Diego State in Phoenix earlier this year by 1 point. So those are games that you want to win, but you got to put your best foot forward in them still. If you can take care of those games, and then you can go maybe 2-1 against the quad 1 games that you've got remaining, win that home game against Utah State, and then either take one in the pit or an Extra Mile Arena in Boise, and you clean up the rest of your slate, then I would feel pretty darn good about San Diego State's chances, because the numbers will be where they need to be, and they'll finally have a couple wins that they can point to that say that they're a tournament team.
Good insight. All right, what about the rest of the Mountain West? Obviously, Utah State, from a sheer record perspective and metric perspective, has put together really an outstanding season. Then you have New Mexico, which I think is maybe in a similar boat to San Diego State. Is there anyone that still could see their way in from the outside, like with a crazy flurry to finish within the league from an at-large perspective? How do you see it?
Yeah, there are definitely a couple. Obviously Utah State's the front runner right now. They're the only Mountain West team that I have in my field right now, but San Diego State and New Mexico are my first two teams on the outside. So it's close. Those two teams could be a coin flip away from getting into the field as well. Those are the three that are really getting all the attention about the possibility of being at-larges. I'm not going to rule out Boise State, which is crazy to say because, obviously the first game of the season, they lost at home to Hawaii Pacific, a Division II team, which is about as terrible as a loss as you can possibly take. But they've got opportunities. They still play at Utah State. That game is coming up next week on Wednesday. If they win that certainly gets them back into the picture. Of course, they welcome San Diego State to Boise on March 3rd, as I touched on before. If that's a game they win, that they're in the picture. Their numbers are just kind of on the outside of where you would expect a bubble team to be, and they still have that terrible Division II loss dragging them down. But they've also got 3 quad one wins. So that's 2 more than either New Mexico or San Diego State have. So I would keep an eye on Boise State here down the stretch. If they can make some noise across some of these games, they still have time to get into the bubble picture the way that the Aztecs and the Lobos are.
DJ Bauer with us right now, Bracketologist.com. If you're looking for his most recent bracket, he's got San Diego State as the first team out, but of course it's only the middle of February, not the middle of March when it truly matters. What do you say when someone asks you about like the strength of the bubble? Like inherently, isn't a bubble kind of soft because it's a bubble? It's kind of towards the back of the field, but like how does this year's bubble compare to, let's say, last year's bubble?
Yeah, the bubble is always kind of an interesting thing because, as you mentioned, the bubble is soft, and that means that wins down there are more impactful, losses down there are more impactful.
Yeah.
It's easier for you to kind of swim up and down the seed list based on the results of your games, as opposed to being near the top of the seed list instead. But the bubble also changes from year to year. I can remember some years where I think, oh my goodness, how am I going to squeeze 68 teams into the field? Some of these teams are so bad. And then you got a year like, 2024, whenever, the Mountain West got 6 teams in, right. And we had the play-in games in Dayton on the 10 line because so many of the teams that didn't expect to win their conference tournaments did and stole bids away from the bubble. And so you have a year like that and you're like, okay, well, actually the bubble's really strong this year. So we just have to wait and see how it plays out with conference tournaments coming up in March. As it stands right now, I think the bubble strengthened itself, a good bit over this past week. Some of the other teams that are hanging out around there, Missouri got a big win at Texas A&M. Virginia Tech got a big win at Clemson. TCU had a 12-0 run late to beat Iowa State. That was huge for their case. Ohio State got a home win over USC, so they're still hanging around. Miami beat North Carolina for their first win against another tournament team this year. And, New Mexico, of course, was another one of those with them winning at Grand Canyon. That's a win that, Grand Canyon's 76th in net right now. So if they move back up one spot, that would be a quad one win for New Mexico. So Bubble did a lot of good work over this past week. And, as a bubble team, you're always rooting for the other bubble teams to lose. So not necessarily the best thing in the world if you're a Aztecs or a Lobos fan, but there's still time. You win your games, you take care of your business, you hope that other teams around you lose. And that's kind of that's the game of playing on the bubble.
A general question, we talked a little bit about the Mountain West, obviously, and we're here in San Diego. We've got the San Diego State rights, and obviously the Aztecs have been in the tournament so many times over the last 15 years. What about the rest of some of these programs, like the Santa Claras and the St. Mary's, and then in the power leagues, like a USC or even a UCLA? Not that I need a deep dive necessarily on all of them, but are any of those teams firmer than others to be in the field? And who's kind of on the outside looking in when you think about SC, UCLA, St. Mary's, Santa Clara?
Yeah, well, all 4 of those teams you mentioned are teams that I do have on the inside right now, but none of them I would say very safely. USC is the one that I have the highest. I think the fact that they've got a good road win at Wisconsin and have done some pretty darn good work in quad 2, little struggling against quad 1, but they've done good work in quad 2. They're on the 10 line for me right now. St. Mary's is a team that I worry about because they played 4 quad 1 games this year and they've only got 1 win. And it was a neutral court win over Virginia Tech, who is net number 50. So that means if Virginia Tech slides back out of the net top 50, that's no longer a quad 1 win for St. Mary's. So So they're going to have, huge games coming up, obviously a rematch against Gonzaga. That one in Moraga, they're going to want to win that one to really secure their tournament case. Santa Clara is really interesting. This is probably Herb Sendek's best shot to get the Broncos into the dance since he took the reins about a decade ago. And they've got two massive games coming up. Obviously, this weekend they host Gonzaga. That's going to be huge. And then they get the return game. They won against St. Mary's at home earlier this year. They traveled to St. Mary's on February 25th, a Wednesday. So those two games are going to be massive for them. And then UCLA is a team that I have in my last four in right now. They are certainly going to have tons of opportunities against the best of the Big Ten. Michigan, Michigan State, Illinois, Nebraska, all still on the schedule. Their issue right now is that their case is kind of hinging on that one win they had, a single bucket win against Purdue last month on the 20th. That's kind of their whole tournament resume right now. So if you're a UCLA fan, you want to see them try to pick up some wins against some of these tougher Big Ten teams down the line.
I would love to get your perspective on what's transpiring with realignment out west, specifically when it comes to college basketball. Because next year, San Diego State's going to be in a league with Gonzaga. And also, obviously, Utah State, Colorado State, Boise State. These programs have had a lot of success recently. Yes, Oregon State, Washington State, up and down, but they've had, elements of success or levels of success. Fresno State obviously has been down. Texas State, who even knows what their college, I mean, that's all new to me. But when you go from like this 12-team Mountain West where you got some of those bottom feeders that have always hung around, and then you go to a new league that is a smaller league that is going to be pretty top heavy with 4 or 5 teams, what is that? How do you forecast that to look? And then the second part of that question would be, it's not the Big East, obviously. I mean, the Big East has a different history with UConn and Villanova. But are there any comparisons for you between what we're about to see in the Pac-12 and what we are seeing right now in the Big East?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of that question, I'm really curious to see how this new Pac-12 is going to come together. Obviously, in today's modern college sports landscape, it's kind of the football that determines everything since that's the big moneymaker. But obviously, the Pac-12 is doing itself a good favor here by, in addition to picking up all those Mountain West schools, also picking up, Gonzaga. Anytime that you're able to get a team with a prestige like that, that's going to be big. I'm not sure that the Pac-12 is going to able to ever return to the kind of power conference status that it had when, UCLA and Arizona and all those teams were still a part of it. But it is going to be a fun conference to watch next year. I think it might be kind of a semi-power conference. A couple years we've seen the Atlantic 10 or the American, send 2 or 3 teams to the tournaments. I mean, the Mountain West, obviously, just a couple years ago got a whole 6 in. So it's basically take the best of that bunch and throw in Gonzaga, and some good things can happen. So be interesting to see whenever that all comes together, how that works out for all those teams. As for the Big East, they're kind of a conglomeration of their own as well. Whenever they broke apart in 2013 and just kind of bunched all the basketball only Catholic schools together, and then obviously adding UConn was their equivalent of adding Gonzaga. A powerhouse to add some weight to the basketball side of things. So I'd be curious to see. Big East even is a conference that obviously UConn has held up its end of the bargain. They've won 2 national championships, but everyone else is kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. St. John's is having a good year. Villanova's having a good year. Aside from that, those seem like they're the only 3 Big East teams that are going to make the tournament this year. So maybe not the most glowing comparison to make for a team that's kind of struggling right now like the Big East, but it will be interesting to see how it all comes together with the new look Pac-12 next year.
DJ Bauer with us. Final one before you go. How do you get into this? There's so many people that do bracketology. I mean, you're writing. I don't even know how you're doing this. You're putting together these long write-ups. It's got to be taking a long time. How do you get into something like this?
Yeah. Obviously it just grows out of a passion of the game, loving college basketball. I just think what kind of spurred it for me is, one, obviously loving the game, loving the NCAA tournament and how wacky it is and all the numbers that go in behind to figuring out where teams get seeded and what locations they get sent to. It just kind of tickles the right spot in my brain. It's something that I've been doing for well over a decade now, dating back to high school. I still remember on the little laptops that our high school would loan us, in a Word document, making my Bracketology back then. And it's funny to look and see how it's grown in the 10 plus years since then. But yeah, just love of the game, love of just having an inquisitiveness about how all the pieces come together and everything. And I'm really looking forward. We're countdown's on. We're a month and 2 days away from Selection Sunday. That's my second Christmas of the year. So absolutely going to be locked into a whole bunch of college basketball these next couple weeks.
I feel the same way, and we're curious here in San Diego if the Aztecs can find their way once again back into the field. But DJ, thanks for taking time for us. For our listeners, check out Bracketology.com for the latest update to DJ's bracket. Thanks, DJ. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, great stuff. At 4 p.m., you'll hear from our Padres insider, Kevin Acee. We're here until 6. We've got Charlie Puth tickets. We'll give them away coming up next on San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Did I tell? So I've talked about this on everything. So my wife, obviously, she had this, not a cancer scare. She had cancer, and she thankfully, they caught it early. She had breast cancer, and she had surgery, and then she went through radiation. She said, "When I'm done with all this, I'm going to Paris." I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. I said, well, I'll go with you, but it can't be like when like the Aztecs have like 2 games in a week or whatever. So we actually considered going last week. Obviously, I didn't go because I've been here, but the Aztecs were off for this week. I considered going this week because San Diego State was off for a week. I'm like, maybe I could like shoehorn it in. That's crazy. But she's like celebrating the fact that she's cancer free. So I'm like, anyway, long and the short of it is that Jones is off next week because it's like an off public school week. I think it's like ski week in San Diego, which is kind of interesting. So Kristen and Jones are en route to Paris right now for 6 days. So that's kind of interesting. That's the whole story, that Kristen's on her way to Paris. And I said, if you're going to Paris, get to Milan. like, come on, look what's going on here in the Olympics. But yeah, Kristen and Jones. Now, this is going to be the trip of a lifetime for my 6-year-old because he's 6. Because if you're 6, you haven't been to Paris. So is
he even going to be able to comprehend this?
No.
Is this trip to Paris going to be any different than if you guys went to like, Phoenix or something?
Yes, because they speak a different language and use different money.
And the airplane.
So that alone is going to be like pretty cool. Like you get there and people are like, bonjour. And he's like, Jones, or they're not using dollars, right? I think by and large, they're using euros. So it's going to be pretty cool. And anyway, it's a long way to Paris from San Diego, right? This isn't like a hop, skip, and a jump. This is like planes, trains, automobiles, and you can't go direct, for example, from San Diego. You can from LA, but they left from San Diego. So it's going to be a bit of an adventure, but hopefully they'll make it at some point in the next handful of hours. Kevin Acee, if you missed Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, he was on with us yesterday. Good reporting on what comes next with AJ Preller. He's actually reporting as of last night that a deal could be done between Preller and the Padres within the next few hours by Monday when the team has its first full squad workout. And he said that based on reporting from a number of sources yesterday. So I think that's, the most imminent news out of Padres spring training. But beyond that, you always are aware of like, is he going to strike in terms of finishing off this rotation? Because I do think obviously that remains the big talking point, obviously, in general, because, this rotation, I think they'd be fun. By the way, if they went into the season and they didn't address this 5th starter spot in any like significant way, I think they'd have the options available to them. Initially, Brent's talked about more bullpen days and openers because of the strength of the bullpen. It's not like if they went into the season, it was March 26th, and they didn't address their 5th starter spot, they'd be screwed. I don't think it would really pan out that way. I just think it makes it a little more cumbersome, and it's a lot harder to overcome an injury if you don't really address it. Now, they've obviously passed on a lot of the options, whether it's a Chris Bassett here recently. There have been some names that we've talked about that have come off the board, right? The Nick Martinez's, the Justin Verlanders. Again, are these perfect options? No, but you're talking about the back of your rotation, not the front of it. You're talking about guys that are, pitchers that aren't getting $30 million per year. These deals are much more cost effective for teams. But even at those cost effective numbers, the Padres have balked to this point. Now, will that change at some point? Yeah, I think probably it will. Now, are they going to spend $18.5 million like Chris Bassett just got on one player? Maybe not. Will they be more inclined to do it if the Yu Darvish money comes off the books to some extent? Maybe. But, I think for a lot of people, including myself at times this offseason, it's like this whole season is hinging on the number 5 starter. We're giving way too much credit to the number 5 starter for saying the whole season hinges on it. There's no way they're going from a projection of 83 wins to 90 wins with their next signing. They might go from 83 to 84 with their next signing. But it's important because you need depth. That's the critical piece that's at play here for San Diego.
Well, it's important because the last 3 or 4 years, the number 5 guy in the Padres rotation, by the time, August and September rolls around, he's the number 1 or 2 guy in the rotation because everyone else is hurt. So, it's important just for the depth because the number 5 most likely is not going to be the number 5 come August. He's probably going to get a promotion, put it that way.
Yeah. And listen, and sometimes that just happens based on good play from like Nick Pivetta. Like it wasn't because of injury that he moved towards the top of the rotation. It's because of his effectiveness. But you are right. There could be another year where you don't want Randy Vasquez as your 3, but because of an injury to your 3, he gets moved up, and that's exposing potentially. I thought Randy Vasquez was very good by and large last year. Hopefully he is again this year. And there is some depth in there. I mean, they do have options at the back of the rotation that I think people haven't given a fair handshake to. And they'll have opportunities this spring, whether it's JP Sears or others. There'll be guys that have opportunities this spring. Someone's going to make the most of an opportunity, but they need depth, I think is the point. It's not that they need one, like one savior with the rotation. They just need depth in the rotation to prevent them from a slide that we've seen before when they lack that depth. Go back to, for example, 2021. You'll hear more on it with Kevin Acee on the other side. I also promised you Charlie Puth tickets. Caller number 2, you are going to see Charlie Puth on April 22nd at Viejas Arena. You have 2 free tickets. Caller number 2, 877-767-4760. Call right now, 877-767-4760. Caller number 2, you have 2 free tickets to see Charlie Puth, who just performed in the Super Bowl. You can see him April 22nd at Viejas Arena. You'll hear from Kevin Acee coming up next. Stay with us. San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Dairy Queen. Chris Paul announced his retirement from the NBA today. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team, 2006 Rookie of the Year, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and he was a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. The Aztecs are back home at VS Arena tomorrow night to take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage will begin at 6 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 7. Whoever said opposites attract was definitely talking about the new spicy menu at DQ. Spicy flamethrower chicken strips served with a dip of sweet DQ soft serve. Sounds wrong, but tastes so right. The new spicy menu at DQ. Happy tastes good for a limited time at participating locations.
By the way, be with us next week. I won't share details, but we have great giveaways for you next week. We're off Monday, but we have some really good giveaways for you next week. Be with us beginning Tuesday right here on San Diego Sports 760. We had Kevin Acee with us yesterday, and he's been reporting the latest on AJ Preller, and there was some really good insight in here. So we started it by just asking him if he was taking AJ Preller at his word as this continues to play out, this saga between the Padres and Preller in terms of whether he's going to have a contract extension or not.
First off, that's pretty standard for a on the record, gathering with Preller, where there's multiple people, where there's cameras, where he knows it's going to be captured. You walk away going, so what is it he said?
Yeah.
But look, I'm just putting the finishing touches on kind of an analysis of the situation, and that, yes, it's like, stop me if you've heard this before. They're close, or it'll happen soon. Look, I think more than ever, that's the indication that I'm getting, that like, we have every reason. I'm not saying we don't. We have every reason to have some curiosity over this, even to be asking the questions we're asking. But it's kind of, from my understanding, much ado about nothing, which is what a lot of these things do turn out to be. Like, we all have our own timeline. We all could come up with reasons, let's just assume that that what we're saying is that AJ Preller should be extended. And I can make that argument for sure. But we think, why isn't it done then? And look, the Padres have been expressing that it would get done. So what the heck? Well, the reality is, and Preller shouldered some of the, if you want to say quote unquote blame for it, when he said he's been busy trying to build the roster. And I know for a fact, like, AJ, he's relentless about that. Like, he just claims to be busy all the time because it's like all he thinks about is building the Padres. But the fact is, he's under contract through the end of the year. There hasn't necessarily been any sense of urgency, though I have reported and said to you here, a few times that it's taken longer than they thought. But the bottom line is, like, it's gonna get done is what is being projected by everyone.
I'm wondering, Kevin Acee's with us right now. Do you think it's a combination of, like, all things, like the length of the deal, the dollar amount on the deal, the ownership structure, not the ownership structure, the organizational structure, as in who he reports to as part of the deal? Like, is it just like a wide ranging, like, you'd like to think that, okay, he's under contract through 2026, just give him 2 years. Like, it's just as simple as that. Just extend the contract for 2 years. But I would imagine, Kevin, it's beyond just like, hey, it's a 2-year extension. There's probably much more in there that would need to be finalized.
Yeah, it's a good point and good questions. And I don't know for sure what is and is not. But look, I think I have a line in my story. I think you and I addressed to some extent, like last week. It doesn't take a detective to figure out, like, what the main issue is here. They have not made an offer that Preller, that meets Preller's requirements.
Sure.
And, don't read into that, that Preller is asking for the moon, but, like, guy needs a raise, and the guy needs to be paid like someone who would be in high demand. And also, a guy who, they dropped $100 million from the payroll and he built a 93-win team. They came back up on payroll, but a lot of that is, pre-2023 money, and they won 90 games. I mean, what he's done to win the last 2 years and then without increasing payroll, set them up in 2026 to be a playoff contender is like, I'm sorry, like objectively, like without prejudice, almost stating it as fact. The guy's done an incredible job.
Yeah, I think certainly worthy of, and most Padres fans feel the same way, worthy of the extension. And then you have the whole leverage conversation. I could see why you kind of hold out if you're AJ Preller, because you'll have offers on the other side of this if this doesn't go accordingly. And if you're the Padres, like, do you really want to entertain the idea of life after AJ Preller? Not to say that they can't win. It's not like, well, if AJ leaves, they're going to win 70 games every year and they can't do it. It's just, you kind of know what AJ has done. And if it's not AJ Preller, there's no assurance that you'll have the same amount of success under the next, general manager.
Absolutely. I mean, at this point too, and I wish I had space to get into this, and I'll talk about it, another time. But in terms of like, for the Union Tribune, is like, this organization has now been built in his image too. Craig Stammen's coaching staff, though Craig had a big part in the coaching staff, but like they share a vision. Minor leagues, player development, the rest of all of his lieutenants. I mean, we're not talking about just getting rid of AJ Preller here. We're talking about his scouts, his most trusted guys. We're talking about Josh Stein, probably, who deserves way more credit than he gets for the creativity that he just like listens to his mad scientist boss, and they come up with a way to get Miguel Andujar within the budget of the cash they have available, Michael King within the budget of the cash they have available. Like, we're talking about like a remake of the organization, which is what I think you were pointing to.
Yeah, 100%. Kevin Acee is our Padres insider. He's back with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. Is Nick Castellanos a possibility here? The Phillies release him. It got a lot of attention, obviously, within the last 24 hours. Presumably, he's getting a major league minimum deal because the Phillies still owe him a lot of money. Do you see this as at least a ball the Padres will run out in the hours and days ahead?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy who then is by the nature of, in fact, he got a lot of money from the Phillies, right? And so a major league minimum, something like that, is within the ballpark of where they're going. Now, depending on how the whole starting pitching thing shakes out, they could have a little more than that and want to go with someone that they might think is better than Nick Castellanos in terms of what he has left and all that. I'm not saying that like a Reese Hoskins would be better. That's not my job. But like they do have a tiny bit of flexibility there, but absolutely. Absolutely. I have not heard anything definitive about how he would fit, what their level of interest is. But absolutely, the Padres are into that. I shouldn't say going to be. They're into that.
Speaking of starting pitching, which you mentioned there, and clearly they have a need. We'll see how they address it. When we talk about available dollars, I mean, we just see Chris Bassett, for example, 1 year, $18.5 million. I get it; it's a good number when the Padres haven't really been toiling in that space, other than Michael King this offseason. Like, how is that fifth spot ultimately addressed? Is it internal? Do they spend the 10 or 12 or 14? I mean, do they make a trade? What's some possibilities here for the Padres?
I don't think it's almost certain that there's not anyone left on the market. Framber Valdez was probably the last guy left on the market that if they could have gotten creative enough, that his price came down enough and he was willing to be creative enough, which he didn't have to be. But that's the last that caliber guy is my point, where the Padres are going to go outside of a, pretty much a prescribed comfort zone. All right. So like they weren't going to do that for Bassett. They're not, in my understanding, going to do that for Zach Gallen. We're talking about, Walker Buehler. Herman Marquez didn't sign today, did he?
I don't believe he has.
So we're talking about guys that, who knows where? Don't just take that I'm limiting it to those two guys. I hate to mention names, and then all of a sudden it's out there like that. It's just that these are some of the guys. Now that doesn't mean they have. Yes, I think it was over portrayed their pursuit of Zach Gallen, but yes, they're talking, right? They're monitoring the market, of course. But like some of these prices for where are you at, man? Let's say Zach Gallen were at third tier. Let's say we're there. These third tier guys, look at the prices they're getting, man. Like that's not Padres land right now. So it's more like, a couple mil and go out and earn your job, or maybe it's a non-roster invite of a name, but a guy who, the league doesn't believe still has it. But they think, hey, what's the harm bringing him in for this little bit or a minor league deal and see what happens here, what he's got left, what Ruben Niebla and crew can do. And that's probably what we're talking about.
Is there any update? Kevin Acee is with us right now, just regarding potential bids for this franchise. I know Rob Manfred, I think, was quoted publicly today saying I think the word he used was robust. There's robust interest in the San Diego Padres. Are we still kind of heading towards a resolution at some point here in 2026 with bids for the franchise and this ownership group changing hands in 2026?
Oh yeah, so, and sooner than later. I mean, it's not going to drag out once these bids happen. I'm trying to kind of nail down like what a timeline might be, but like we talked about for a couple weeks now, people have been talking about this more sooner than later.
What role? I go back to 2023, and I don't know the role that players leaving for the WBC had on their ultimate, success or failure that year. And obviously it was a disappointment, a significant disappointment, the way the team played. What are they saying about that this time around? I feel like that's been a topic of conversation this offseason. They'll have 8 or 9 players leave once again. What impact did it have in 2023, and how can they potentially curtail it moving forward?
I don't think anyone denies that it had an impact, though there is obviously a reluctance to say that, that's why, right? But they got off to a terrible start, right?
Yeah.
And you had a bunch of new players. I mean, to a certain extent, Juan Soto was new. You had the pitch clock being implemented. You had a manager who, kind of let the players run things. And well, wait a minute, all our leaders are gone, or not all, but you know what I mean. Like a lot of the best players are gone for a long time. You had Tatis coming back, but then also being gone for the first 20 games. There was a confluence of events that the WBC played a big role in that just set them up for failure. They've now experienced it. They've learned, and when I say they, Machado, who else is still on the Xander?
Yeah.
And of course the organization. But I'll say this, that like we've talked about this. I'm not trying to, crap on Bob Melvin, but Mike Schilt ran a tight ship. I don't like in terms of detail, in terms of efficiency, in terms of like making sure that sort of thing would be addressed. And I don't think there's much change this year in that. They are intentionally going to try to make sure that there's team building, that they can turn this into a positive, because there's no doubt that it hurts every team to some extent to have their best players. And more than ever, the best players are playing in the WBC.
Yeah, that's really good insight. One more before you go, Kevin. You wrote about Sung Moon Song, who's one of the bigger moves of the offseason, obviously, because it's been a relatively quiet offseason. I know he was to some extent banged up, but it sounds like his health is in a good spot. What's the general plan here for the way he's going to impact this team in 2026? As we start spring training, what's the thought process with his role for the year?
Like best case scenario is he's filling in regularly and serving as a DH, because man, he is hitting right-handers just so well. That's probably best case scenario, right? You take a look at how long it takes. I mean, the Korean hitters coming over here, and the best of them, there's just a matriculation process. This is a much better league, much faster, better pitching. And then so much else too. Like I didn't realize till Ha-Seong Kim came, there's one time zone in Korea, right? Like, and all of a sudden you are traveling across like 4 Koreas and you are playing, what is it, 18 more games. And it's just a lot. And you're doing it while having to communicate, trying to learn English, have an interpreter do everything. And you are missing Korean food and your mom and your family. And I mean, it's a lot, man. So I don't know that the expectations should be that great. And I'm not saying that he can't be a big part of the team, but I don't know that the expectations should be that great.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Kevin, appreciate you taking time. Never dull. And spring training's back underway. We'll be doing a lot here in 2026. So appreciate you taking time for us, and we'll catch up again in the coming days.
See you, John. Bye.
All right. So Kevin Acee, who will be with us, a number of times per week leading up to the season. And then during the season, I think 3 times per week on this show and 1 time per week as well with Ben Fletcher and Sammy Long. There's a lot to react to. Kevin's been doing some additional writing today. So we're going to get into where the Padres are right now with their rotation. We're here until 6 p.m. If you missed our Bracketologist of the Week, DJ Bauer, you'll hear that conversation at 5 p.m. Don't go anywhere. It's San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760 has 13 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. It's the Bonus Bucks giveaway. It was only 2 weeks ago. We had Michelle, a listener to 760, walk away with $1,000. You can enter every hour from 6 a.m. through 6 p.m. Just listen for the keyword you'll hear at this hour, then enter it at sportssd.com. Your next chance to win $1,000 is coming up at 5 p.m. And again, one of our listeners 2 weeks ago, Michelle, won that national contest. You can do the same, be $1,000 richer. Listen and then enter the keyword at sportssd.com for your chance to win $1,000. All-Star Weekend is underway in Los Angeles. Yes, that's right. The Ruffles All-Star Celebrity Game is being played this evening.
We use the term celebrity very, very loosely.
Well, that's where I was going to go with that. Who is in this year's Ruffles Celebrity Game? Because I think it has gone. I think you mentioned yesterday the celebrities have just become like influencers. It's like people on TikTok, people on Instagram. I have no idea who's in the celebrity game. I don't even know how you can watch the celebrity game. Like, is that televised?
It's on ESPN.
Is it on right now?
Yeah, but I'm not shutting the Olympics off for that.
So, do we know who's in this? Like,
yes,
who's in this?
Let's see. Badasha.
Keegan Michael Key.
Mustard.
Like
Glorilla. I've heard of her. She's had like a McDonald's meal for like a couple weeks.
Here's a good one. Jeremy Lin.
I know who that is. Linsanity. Simu Liu. I know who that is. I don't know who. Yeah, I know who Keegan Michael Key is, of course. I'm around St. Brown from Detroit. Keenan Allen. Obviously, everyone here knows he is. Oh, Taco Fall.
He's a celebrity or basketball player?
Well, he's in the athlete category.
Okay, yeah.
Because they have actors / personalities. Simu Liu, which he's in the MCU and he's in stuff. He's an actor. Rome Flynn, which don't know who that is. Taylor Frankie Paul, don't know who that is. Nicholas Vanstenbergy, don't know who that is. Keegan Michael Key, that's guy from Key and Peele. I like him. He's funny. Cody Jones, no clue. Jenna Bandy, no clue. Then they have athletes. Andre DeGrassi, no clue. Okay. Jeremy, then Linsanity, St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Cafu, CAFU,
yeah,
whoever that is. Then Taco Fall, then White Chocolate, Jason Williams.
Yeah.
Love me some Jason Williams back in the day. And then executives that are playing Matt Ibisha and Rick Schnall. And then like Shams is like playing in it. And
so I guess
Mookie Betts and he's one of the coaches.
Here's my question. Who is this intended for? Is this
kids?
Hey, these are friends of the NBA and they're going to have an enjoyable, fun night. And then I'm assuming it's for kids. But then the other thing I'm assuming, Brent, is the whole point of this is to splice it up into like little Instagram clips. This is for like 15-second viral. Oh, look what happened when Keegan Michael Key interacted with Giannis or whatever. Like that. That's how I see this as a way to like push out content as opposed to watch these random teams play basketball against each other.
It's just for pretty much just it's for kids. It's for clicks.
Right,
I remember when I used to watch this when I was a kid, just because I thought it when 11-year-old me thought it was neat to see Urkel play basketball with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and whatever the early 90s celebrities were back in the day. But yeah, like now they're all like celebrity like influencers. Oh, the Cafu is a soccer player. He's a FIFA World Cup champion.
Yeah,
apparently.
I don't know if you say it that way or not.
I'm 99.9% sure I'm not saying it right.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, All-Star Weekend is underway. Now, tomorrow you've got a 4-year Aztec, Keyshawn Johnson, in the slam dunk contest. So that's
the only reason I have to watch it.
I was going to say, now, I don't know what time the slam dunk contest is because we have Aztec basketball tomorrow night at 7. But my guess is maybe the slam dunk contest would be before 10 p.m. Eastern, maybe in 8 or 9.
They'll end it with a dunk contest.
Okay, so actually probably might be in that similar time frame. So you got 3-point, right?
Yeah, well, if they do the order they usually do, they'll do the skills challenge thing first, then the 3-point shooting competition, and then they'll end with the dunk contest. So there's a chance we might be done in time. And if we're not, I think everything's all on Peacock this year too,
Right,
so we can always
order.
go back and just watch it.
So right now, the All-Star Celebrity Game is underway. Tonight on Peacock, Rising Stars Game 1, Team Austin versus Team Melo, followed by Rising Stars Game 2, which will tip off a couple hours later between Team Vince and Team T-Mac. Tomorrow, or is this even tomorrow? Then the Rising Stars Championship is tonight after that. And then tomorrow you've got NBA All-Star Saturday with the 3-point contest, the Kia Shooting Stars, and the AT&T Slam Dunk contest. And then Sunday, of course, I still don't even understand the game. I mean, on Sunday, you've got World versus Stars, then Game 1 winner versus Stripes, then Game 1 loser versus. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
I'll have to try and find it.
Please.
Earlier this morning, when I get most of my like highlights and stuff through YouTube on House of Highlights and stuff.
Yep.
And the NBA had an ad that was on my YouTube feed of Carmelo Anthony explaining the All-Star Game format. I'll try and find it.
If you find that, we can play that. All right. At 5 p.m., if you missed our conversation with DJ Bauer, our bracketologist of the week, you'll hear that coming up at 5 p.m. We'll get you ready for tomorrow as well. San Diego State and Nevada. Aztecs hoping to potentially get Magoon Guath back. What will that mean for San Diego State's chances down the stretch of the season? We'll discuss that on the other side. Plus, the latest from Padres spring training is ahead. We're here until 6. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Chris Paul announced his retirement from the NBA today. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team, 2006 Rookie of the Year, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and he was a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. The Aztecs are back at it at Viejas Arena tomorrow night when they take on the Nevada Wolfpack. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will start at 6 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 7. For victims of drunk and drugged driving, your grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
All right, so we'll get an explanation on the All-Star Game format coming up. Who provides the explanation again, Brent?
Carmelo Anthony.
All right, so we'll hear from Melo on the All-Star Game format coming up. And again, as All-Star Weekend plays out, San Diego State back on the floor tomorrow night against Nevada. Stretch run will be underway. 7 games remain for the Aztecs in the regular season. That is it. 7 games. They're all important. Beginning with this tricky one against Nevada, you could argue it's tricky. San Diego State handed Nevada its only home loss this year. Nevada will be motivated to return the favor, obviously. This is a very good Nevada team. Are they on the outside looking in when it comes to like an at-large berth, but they didn't have a great year last year, and they've been much better this year, and they're an outstanding scoring team. Their offense has been very impressive. And the Aztecs will need to play well. And that's basically the theme of the final 7 games, where you have Nevada and Grand Canyon at home, capable teams. And you go to places like Colorado State. I know Colorado State's been down, but you're on the road at elevation. It's never been the easiest place in the world to play. So that's tricky is how I would describe it. You still have to go to the pit, still have to go to the pit to play New Mexico. That's obviously a very hard game. You still have Utah State at home. You still have to go to Boise State. And the one game at home that San Diego State might be a double-digit favorite in, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to win the game by double figures. UNLV at home on senior night. UNLV over the years has given San Diego State some very good games. So again, everything's still in front of San Diego State. It's kind of funny that, I guess over the course of a college basketball season, it is always like one game or one call. It's like the Troy game. We're going back to this game. It was a couple of months ago now. And I want to say that's San Diego State's only home loss. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's San Diego State's only home loss. Yeah, it's Troy. And it's a game that, they were fortunate to get to overtime. Miles Bird hit a 3 at the buzzer. So they were, in a very tough spot in the final seconds. But then they got to overtime and they led by 4 points, not once, but in 2 overtimes. And in one of the overtimes, not only did they lead by 4, they led by 4 with the ball with about 2.5 minutes to play. Then there was an illegal screen, and I don't even know how it ended. It's all a blur at this point. So there's that game where it's like, well, if you could just flip-flop the result, and you can't, then the Aztecs would be in a much more favorable position. And then there's the Grand Canyon game, where, again, it came down to a call with 1 second left. It went against San Diego State. Aztecs ended up losing the game by 1 point. If you could just flip one of those results, you'd feel really good about where San Diego State is right now. Even without those games going your way, they're in a good spot. They're not in a bad spot. Again, they have work to do, but they're not in a bad spot. And again, as opposed to last year, I think last year at this time, it's like, can you hold on for dear life? You have no Magoon Guath. And now this year, it's like, can you improve your standing? Because you have Magoon Guath coming back. And this isn't all about tomorrow. I wouldn't expect Magoon to be this one-game savior where he hasn't played in weeks. It hasn't been forever, but it's been weeks. I wouldn't expect him to all of a sudden play 30 minutes and score 25 points. But I think with time, hopefully he gets back, 25 plus minutes, back in double figures with regularity. But I do think, Brent, we need to give it time.
We said that at the beginning of the year, and then he came out and he had like 12 points in like 8 minutes or whatever it was.
That's exactly. Well, against Troy, his first game of the year was Troy. He scored 20. Now it went 2 overtimes. And he played all 10 minutes or most of the 10 minutes of the 2 overs. I mean, he played so much. He played 30 minutes in his debut because of the 10 extra minutes.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is last time we didn't think he was going to, we thought he was going to come out and play 5 minutes spread throughout the game. And then he just came out and was, just did his 10, 12 minutes and just contributed. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll get lucky again.
maybe. Do we have the Chris Sale? What do you want? Do you have what do you want to start with? Do you have Melo?
We can do Melo next because it's up
Okay.
there.
So I want to switch gears. So Major League Baseball in 2026 will introduce automatic balls and strikes. They had it in spring training last year. They didn't have it in the regular season. It was widely viewed as a success in spring training, right? So the umpire would call a ball and a team would have a moment to challenge it if they wished. I forget the exact circumstance. Like you have 3 challenges. If you get them right, you keep your challenge, something along those lines. So it was seen as a success. And listen, umpiring is a hard job. You're plate umpiring. You're seeing 300 pitches in a game, if not more, and you're asked to get 98% of them right. That's hard, man. I mean, that's very, very hard. So hopefully automatic balls and strikes cleans up some of the insanity you see with plate umpires. But this was interesting today from Chris Sale, who has won a ton of games, obviously, in the major leagues, a longtime starter in the major leagues. He had this to say about ABS.
I will never challenge a pitch. I will never do it. I won't do it.
Why?
Because I'm not an umpire. That's their job.
That's fair enough.
I'm a starting pitcher. I've never called balls and strikes in my life. Plus, I'm greedy, and I know that. I think they're all strikes. Especially the catchers nowadays, the way they catch the ball, the way they receive, they make them all look like strikes. And again, I'm a starting pitcher, and I'm greedy. I like pitches that are on the corner that might be a little off. In the heat of moment, especially you throw a good pitch, you got Murph or Baldy or whoever back there, and they kind of catch it the right way. I mean, they make a lot of balls look like strikes, and I don't want to take away one of those challenges that might be needed later on in the game. And I've dealt with it before. It's across all games and my entire career, there's been balls called strikes and strikes called balls, and you just kind of deal with it. Now, if my catcher has something to say about it, I'll leave that to him.
Oh.
But I've dealt with both sides, and I'm fine to kind of keep dealing with it.
Oh, so he left the big out, which is, well, if my catcher takes exception. First of all, it makes no sense, Chris. So now all of a sudden you're in this regular season game. It's the 6th inning. There's 2 outs and 2 strikes. You're about to get through the 6th or the 5th to give you a potential win. And you're not going to challenge the call if it's a strike? Why? That doesn't make any sense. You're not benefiting your team. You're not helping yourself. Now, okay, if he's saying semantics, the catcher can do that for me. That's semantics. But guess what? He's going to be very demonstrative on the mound. If you throw a pitch right down the middle to get out of an inning and it's called a ball, you have to challenge it.
Dude, we've seen enough baseball games to know that the second he throws a pitch that is right down the middle,
right,
and some ump that's got his head up his rear is going to call it a ball, he's going to go ballistic, just like every starting pitcher does when that happens. The only difference in previous years is and he was right to, this extent that, balls get called strikes all the time. Strikes get called balls all the time. It's just part of baseball. It happens. Well, guess what, Chris? It doesn't have to happen anymore because now you can actually look at it. So before in years past, when you thought that pitch was a strike, yeah, sure, there was no point in getting all pissed off about it because there's nothing you can do. And all you're going to do is end up getting, a fine over it. But now, if you're that sure, then you can challenge it. And yeah, and it's a total cop out. Well, I'm never going to challenge it, but I might tell my catcher to challenge it and he'll do it. But then I didn't do it. The catcher did.
Imagine dying on that hill. It's like game 4 of the NLCS. And you're like, I'm not challenging it.
His manager's out there telling, he's like, no,
we're not going to do it.
Nope.
And again, I'm not saying challenge every pitch. I mean, he made the interesting point he made was listen, I think everything's a strike. You certainly wouldn't want to be so excited about challenging that you challenge 3 pitches in the top of the 1st inning and you get 2 wrong and you're screwed for the rest of the game. But that doesn't mean you should never challenge.
I think the majority of the challenges are going to come from the batting side of it anyways, not necessarily from the pitching side.
I think catchers too. I mean, catchers have the perspective. They know everything about where the pitch, crossed the plate.
The only thing with the catch, I don't trust the catchers because they're all lying anyways when they frame the pitches. Job. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like framing is going to remain because umpires are still going to be calling balls and strikes. So you're going to want to frame the pitch appropriately. And remember, you're only going to get so many challenges per game. So if that number is 3, you can't just challenge the first pitch of the first game that's borderline. You're not going to challenge the first pitch. You're going to have to pick your spots. Also, I don't know if they're going to give, are we going to let Freddie Fermin challenge in the first inning, or are we going to let Manny Machado? I think you got to save back a challenge or two for late innings. And I think you also have to save challenges for your offensive weapons potentially.
They of course took it down. Good job, ESPN. But they had an article
rules,
detailing the rules and everything.
Yeah.
This year they have it set up to where if if Manny challenges something in the first inning and he's correct, then they get that challenge back then in the following inning.
Gotcha.
So you can potentially have a challenge in every inning, but nobody can have more than one because they don't stack, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I need to see it laid out in plain English, because it's going to be confusing until we know what it is. You know what I mean? We're like, challenge everything. No, you can't challenge everything. And here's the other thing. My guess is what's challenged, a good percent will be incorrect challenges, right? What percent of challenges will be successful? That's fascinating to me in the major leagues. Will it reach 60%? Will 60% of challenges be successful? That would be a huge number. So anyway, it's coming to Major League Baseball in 2026. I think it's a very good addition. We can touch more on it on the other side. Plus our bracketologist of the week, DJ Bauer, at 5 p.m. We're also going to hear from Melo on the NBA All-Star Game. What is the format? He'll explain it maybe in plain English. Coming up next on San Diego Sports 760. All right, back with you, San Diego Sports 760. We'll hear from Melo shortly on the NBA All-Star Game format here in 2026 in LA. Now, Brent just shared some details of the ABS system with me, which again is going to be implemented across all of Major League Baseball. This is from Jesse. Let me just read through this real quick. If a team enters extra innings without a challenge, they'll be given an extra one every inning.
Yeah, that was one of the other scenarios. You could have multiple challenges if one carries over into extras.
There's some interesting things in here, man. A pitch may not be challenged if a position player is pitching. I like it.
Yeah, you know, because why waste your time if Crony's on the mound?
How about this, Brent? The league is measuring the standing height of every player to determine their individual strike zone, which will be slightly smaller than the umpire called zone.
Yeah, but that makes sense though, because the ABS, the computer has to establish the strike zone for everybody. So that makes total sense.
Interesting. Even if they've used their it all boils down to this though. You only get 2 allotted challenges in the first 9 innings. Now, if you get it right, you keep. I'm right. I'm 99.9. So in theory, correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a max number of challenges? It's like hitting on the roulette wheel. If you keep hitting, you keep playing, right?
As far as I'm
if you have a horse bleep umpire that is really bad out of the gates, you could completely take advantage of that situation and go like 15 for 15 in challenges.
Yes.
And the challenge system, what I like about it, listen, I'm not the biggest. When I was a kid, I would watch it. I don't watch a lot of tennis. What I do like about tennis is when they show me the automatic, like where the tennis ball landed. I think that's really cool. And they do it instantaneously within like 3 seconds. And we saw that last year in spring training with the ABS. And I thought that was really cool. So this isn't like, hey, the umpire got it wrong. Let's stop the game for a minute. It's not stopping the game for a minute. It's stopping the game for a few seconds.
And I think once they get going, they'll develop ways to speed it up. I think it's going to be kind of like what the NFL did this year when they were just like, look, we know they're going to challenge this. Let's just look at it now. So then we can just come out, you know, and just like someone threw a flag and just go, we already looked at it. It's a first down. Let's just keep going. We don't need to stop the game for 5 minutes. So they might be a little preemptive if there's like one that's totally obvious that they're, you know, blew it to where New York's like, okay, I'm going to start looking at this now because I know they're going to look at it.
What about this though, Brent? This is where it gets hairy. I never thought about this. Umpires will be given discretion on plays that happen on the bases, even when a pitch is being challenged. For example, the outcome of a stolen base attempt is likely to stand no matter the outcome of the challenge, with the lone exception coming on a ball 4 or strike 3 call that is overturned. If the umpire deems player behavior has been impacted, for example, if the catcher stops playing because he hears ball 4 and the call is overturned, he might send the runner back to his original base and the stolen base won't count. What? You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of it, a lot of the game of baseball is predicated on the plate umpire's call. Ball 4, take off my equipment, walk down to first. But then 3 seconds later, a challenge is issued. Or just kidding, you just struck out. And now it impacts the other runners, potentially other bases. So there's like unintended consequences. There's going to be some weird moments. I'm telling you, there's going to be some weird moments because of challenges that are then going to change what happened on the bases as a result. So anyway, I think by and large, it's a positive for the sport. I'm looking forward to seeing it, not just in spring training, but obviously in the regular season as well.
I'm just excited for consistency.
Yep.
That's the one thing that has always, you know, drove me nuts about baseball.
It's all over the place.
And look, I get it. Everyone's like, oh, it's the human fact. I totally get that. But, you know, in the NFL, a first down is a first down. It's not. I got 10 yards this time, and so it's a first down. But the next time I'm going to get 10 yards, they're going to say it's not a first down. You know, a pitch in the first inning in the exact same spot as it was in the third inning, they should both be the same thing. They should both be a strike or a ball. It shouldn't be, oh, well, in the first inning, I called it a strike, and then in the third inning, it's a ball. And, you know, as a hitter, just I think we're going to see averages and stuff go up a little more because of this stuff to a certain degree, because the hitters aren't going to have to, they're going to know what to expect more than just a randomness of, all right, this might be a strike today. Now they can go into every game, especially since they're measuring everyone's strike zone. I know that this on me is going to be a strike, you know, 99.9% of the time. So if this comes in, I know I got to swing at it. It's not one of those where, well, today so-and-so is behind the plate, so I got to swing at it. And then tomorrow, so-and-so's there. So then, I got to let it go because he's not going to call it anyways.
Right. I agree with you, which is like you're saying some of it is kind of the beauty of the game, that it's never going to be identical, but I would prefer it's more universally accepted, the strike zone across the sport. Now, you're still going to have a bad umpire and a good umpire, which is dictating the initial call. The robot or the automated thing, that's not making the call. The umpire makes the call. The players determine whether it should be challenged or not.
And for years, and this kind of goes along all sports, there's no negative reaction to, if a ref blows a call, he blew the call. So what? I'm not going to get in trouble for it. I'm not going to get penalized for it. Nothing's going to happen to me for making a obviously bad call. Like that dude that lost his perfect game because he ruled the guy, safe at first that one year. It was it Angel Raga? Yeah. And it's just like, we won't have to worry about that stuff, but it might motivate them to call better games though.
Potentially.
Because this might light a fire under their ass and go, look, they really want to replace us with computers. And if we show them that we are as incompetent as some of the fan bases think that we are, then we are going to get replaced by computers. Because, yes, the umpire union is strong, but it's not as strong as the players union. So if they get it perfected with just computers doing everything, they'll get rid of them in a heartbeat. They'll just keep one dude back there just in case.
And I hope we don't get there, honestly, because I do think the human element to our collective points has value. But if the computer is so much better, which it is, it's a computer, then there may come a day. If this is so well received, people might just be like, why don't you just automate everything?
Yeah. I hope we don't have to get there.
I hope we don't have
is
to
my
either.
point. But I don't. And I'm not opposed to, being able to review more things. It's just like in football, there's some things that I think they should review that they don't. And I think baseball is kind of similar. I think there's some more things that they could review opposed to just leaving it out there. And depending on how well this goes, I think we'll see more stuff added because that's kind of their thing now. Every year they used to do every offseason. Oh, we made no changes to the rules, nothing. It's the same baseball it's been for 60 years. But now, between the pitch clock and the stolen base stuff and now ABS, it's like every year
and the new CBA, there could be more coming.
Every year they're coming out with like new changes and new developments.
The shift has changed in the last 5 years as well. It's a good point. We'll hear from Melo in the 5 o'clock hour. We have time. We're going to hear from DJ Bauer, our bracketologist of the week, coming up on the other side. His thoughts on San Diego State heading towards March. You'll hear from our bracketologist of the week coming up next. Final hour on San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app, comes up next.
This report is sponsored by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Chris Paul announced his retirement from the NBA today. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team member, 2006 Rookie of the Year, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and he was a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. The Aztecs are back at the Aztecs Arena tomorrow night to take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will start at 6 o'clock, and John will have the tip a little after 7. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more at crohnscolitisfoundation.org.
Yeah, we got some jams on this station, don't we? All right, San Diego Sports 760. We'll hear from Carmelo Anthony on the All-Star Game format coming up. So if you're in your driveway, just stay where you are. Our bracketologist of the week.
Unless you want to be confused on Sunday, it's up to you.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's very confusing. Without a primer, what are you supposed to do? It's not going to make any sense.
Yeah,
there's multiple U.S. teams and a world team.
And he even breaks it down on why they have the team, the names, and everything.
Yeah, maybe the explanation will make some sense. So we'll hear from Carmelo coming up in like 15 or so minutes. But if you missed DJ Bauer, our bracketologist of the week, he has an amazing site, Bowertology.com, and he wrote like 12,000 words this past week, including on San Diego State. So we started by asking him about where the Aztecs fit right now. I think he's got the Aztecs as his first team out. Here's DJ Bauer.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I brand spanking new bracket out this morning in San Diego State. They're really close. They are my first team outside my field right now, but there's just a couple hangups I have about kind of where the state of their resume, their tournament profile looks. Obviously the big one for me is that they just haven't won enough against some of these great teams. You take a look back at what they did in the non-conference. They had two big opportunities against Arizona and Michigan, the top two teams in the country right now. Obviously, San Diego State got blown off the floor in both of those games, so that's no good. Of course, you split it into the different quadrant buckets. Their only quad one win right now is over Nevada. They won that game in Reno. It's a nice win. It's a quad one win, but it's not against a team that is currently in the NCAA tournament picture. They're a little bit farther out of it, so that's not super helpful. And they have a home win over New Mexico as well in quadrant two. That's at least a team that's a little closer to the NCAA tournament. But they just haven't won too many of these big opportunities that they've had to try to get these numbers that would put them into the tournament field. And so they're close. They're right on the edge for me. They have some of the other numbers that you would expect of a tournament team. They just kind of need to bulk up some of those bigger wins, and they are going to get some opportunities down the line in Mountain West play to do just that.
DJ Bauer with us right now, again, has a website, Bowertology, where you can check out his recent bracket, Bowertology.com. All right, to go down further that path with you. And I know like the bubble is a moving target because it's contingent on like not just your play, but other teams' play. Are teams winning at a high clip that are on the bubble? Are they losing at a higher clip? But when you look at what the Aztecs have remaining, I don't know if you have it in front of you. I don't even have it in front of me. But, Utah State at home, they got to go to New Mexico. They still have Grand Canyon and Nevada here. Those would be quad two opportunities in San Diego. They have 7 regular season games remaining. I guess I would ask it like this. Like, where would Aztec fans feel good about San Diego State? Like 6-1 with the win over Utah State? Like, where would you feel good about the Aztecs moving forward?
So 3 games that they have in a row, February 25th, February 28th, March 3rd, versus Utah State, at New Mexico, at Boise State. As it stands, those are all quad one games. And that's the biggest part of the team sheet for San Diego State, where they're lacking at just 1-4 in quad one. So honestly, if they take care of the other games that they've got, and at Colorado State is certainly, a tricky game. They're still a decent team, though they're not quite the team that they've been in recent years. And you can't overlook either of Nevada or Grand Canyon at home, because those are, 2 good teams as well. Obviously, Grand Canyon beat San Diego State in Phoenix earlier this year by 1 point. So those are games that you want to win, but you got to put your best foot forward in them still. If you can take care of those games, and then you can go maybe 2-1 against the quad one games that you've got remaining, win that home game against Utah State, and then either take one in the pit or an Extra Mile Arena in Boise, and you clean up the rest of your slate. Then I would feel pretty darn good about San Diego State's chances, because the numbers will be where they need to be, and they'll finally have a couple wins that they can point to that say that they're a tournament team.
Good insight. All right. What about the rest of the Mountain West? Obviously, Utah State, from a sheer record perspective and metric perspective, has put together really an outstanding season. Then you have New Mexico, which I think is maybe in a similar boat to San Diego State. Is there anyone that still could see their way in from the outside, like with a crazy flurry to finish within the league from an at-large perspective? How do you see it?
Yeah, there are definitely a couple. Obviously Utah State's the front runner right now. They're the only Mountain West team that I have in my field right now, but San Diego State and New Mexico are my first two teams on the outside. So it's close. Those two teams could be a coin flip away from getting into the field as well. Those are the three that are really getting all the attention about the possibility of being at-larges. I'm not going to rule out Boise State, which is crazy to say because, obviously the first game of the season, they lost at home to Hawaii Pacific, a Division II team, which is about as terrible as a loss as you can possibly take. But they've got opportunities. They still play at Utah State. That game is coming up next week on Wednesday. If they win that certainly gets them back into the picture. Of course, they welcome San Diego State to Boise on March 3rd, as I touched on before. If that's a game they win, that they're in the picture. Their numbers are just kind of on the outside of where you would expect a bubble team to be, and they still have that terrible Division II loss dragging them down. But they've also got 3 quad one wins. So that's 2 more than either New Mexico or San Diego State have. So I would keep an eye on Boise State here down the stretch. If they can make some noise across some of these games, they still have time to get into the bubble picture the way that the Aztecs and the Lobos are.
DJ Bauer with us right now, Bowertology.com. If you're looking for his most recent bracket, he's got San Diego State as the first team out, but of course it's only the middle of February, not the middle of March when it truly matters. What do you say when someone asks you about like the strength of the bubble? Like inherently, isn't a bubble kind of soft because it's a bubble? It's kind of towards the back of the field, but like how does this year's bubble compare to, let's say, last year's bubble?
Yeah, the bubble is always kind of an interesting thing because, as you mentioned, the bubble is soft, and that means that wins down there are more impactful, losses down there are more impactful. Yeah. It's easier for you to kind of swim up and down the seed list based on the results of your games, as opposed to being near the top of the seed list instead. But the bubble also changes from year to year. I can remember some years where I think, oh my goodness, how am I going to squeeze 68 teams into the field? Some of these teams are so bad. And then you got a year like, 2024, whenever, the Mountain West got 6 teams in, right. And we had the play-in games in Dayton on the 10 line because so many of the teams that didn't expect to win their conference tournaments did and stole bids away from the bubble. And so you have a year like that and you're like, okay, well, actually the bubble's really strong this year. So we just have to wait and see how it plays out with conference tournaments coming up in March. As it stands right now, I think the bubble strengthened itself, a good bit over this past week. Some of the other teams that are hanging out around there, Missouri got a big win at Texas A&M. Virginia Tech got a big win at Clemson. TCU had a 12-0 run late to beat Iowa State. That was huge for their case. Ohio State got a home win over USC, so they're still hanging around. Miami beat North Carolina for their first win against another tournament team this year. And, New Mexico, of course, was another one of those with them winning at Grand Canyon. That's a win that, Grand Canyon's 76th in net right now. So if they move back up one spot, that would be a quad one win for New Mexico. So Bubble did a lot of good work over this past week. And, as a bubble team, you're always rooting for the other bubble teams to lose. So not necessarily the best thing in the world if you're a Aztecs or a Lobos fan, but there's still time. You win your games, you take care of your business. You hope that other teams around you lose. And that's kind of that's the game of playing on the bubble.
A general question, we talked a little bit about the Mountain West, obviously, and we're here in San Diego. We've got the San Diego State rights, and obviously the Aztecs have been in the tournament so many times over the last 15 years. What about the rest of some of these programs, like the Santa Claras and the St. Mary's, and then in the power leagues, like a USC or even a UCLA? Not that I need a deep dive necessarily on all of them, but are any of those teams firmer than others to be in the field? And who's kind of on the outside looking in when you think about SC, UCLA, St. Mary's, Santa Clara?
Yeah, well, all 4 of those teams you mentioned are teams that I do have on the inside right now, but none of them I would say very safely. USC is the one that I have the highest. I think the fact that they've got a good road win at Wisconsin and have done some pretty darn good work in quad 2, little struggling against quad 1, but they've done good work in quad 2. They're on the 10 line for me right now. St. Mary's is a team that I worry about because they played 4 quad 1 games this year and they've only got 1 win. And it was a neutral court win over Virginia Tech, who is net number 50. So that means if Virginia Tech slides back out of the net top 50, that's no longer a quad one win for St. Mary's. So they're going to have, huge games coming up, obviously a rematch against Gonzaga. That one in Moraga, they're going to want to win that one to really secure their tournament case. Santa Clara is really interesting. This is probably Herb Sendek's best shot to get the Broncos into the dance since he took the reins about a decade ago. And they've got two massive games coming up. Obviously, this weekend they host Gonzaga. That's going to be huge. And then they get the return game. They won against St. Mary's at home earlier this year. They traveled to St. Mary's on February 25th, a Wednesday. So those two games are going to be massive for them. And then UCLA is a team that I have in my last four in right now. They are certainly going to have tons of opportunities against the best of the Big Ten. Michigan, Michigan State, Illinois, Nebraska, all still on the schedule. Their issue right now is that their case is kind of hinging on that one win they had, single bucket win against Purdue last month on the 20th. That's kind of their whole tournament resume right now. So if you're a UCLA fan, you want to see them try to pick up some wins against some of these tougher Big Ten teams down the line.
I would love to get your perspective on what's transpiring with realignment out west, specifically when it comes to college basketball. Because next year, San Diego State's going to be in a league with Gonzaga. And also, obviously, Utah State, Colorado State, Boise State. These programs have had a lot of success recently. Yes, Oregon State, Washington State, up and down, but they've had, elements of success or levels of success. Fresno State obviously has been down. Texas State, who even knows what their college, that's all new to me. But when you go from like this 12-team Mountain West where you got some of those bottom feeders that have always hung around, and then you go to a new league that is a smaller league that is going to be pretty top heavy with 4 or 5 teams, what is that? How do you forecast that to look? And then the second part of that question would be, it's not the Big East, obviously. I mean, the Big East has a different history with UConn and Villanova. But are there any comparisons for you between what we're about to see in the Pac-12 and what we are seeing right now in the Big East?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of that question, I'm really curious to see how this new Pac-12 is going to come together. Obviously, in today's modern college sports landscape, it's kind of the football that determines everything since that's the big moneymaker. But obviously, the Pac-12 is doing itself a good favor here by, in addition to picking up all those Mountain West schools, also picking up, Gonzaga. Anytime that you're able to get a team with a prestige like that, that's going to be big. I'm not sure that the Pac-12 is going to able to ever return to the kind of power conference status that it had when, UCLA and Arizona and all those teams were still a part of it. But it is going to be a fun conference to watch next year. I think it might be kind of a semi-power conference. A couple years we've seen the Atlantic 10 or the American, send 2 or 3 teams to the tournaments. I mean, the Mountain West, obviously, just a couple years ago got a whole 6 in. So it's basically take the best of that bunch and throw in Gonzaga and some good things can happen. So be interesting to see whenever that all comes together, how that works out for all those teams. As for the, Big East, they're kind of a conglomeration of their own as well. Whenever they broke apart in 2013 and just kind of bunched all the basketball-only Catholic schools together. And then, obviously adding UConn was their equivalent of adding Gonzaga. A powerhouse to add some weight to the basketball side of things. So I'd be curious to see, Big East even is a conference that obviously UConn has held up its end of the bargain. They've won 2 national championships, but, everyone else is kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. St. John's is having a good year. Villanova's having a good year. Aside from that, those seem like they're the only 3 Big East teams that are going to make the tournament this year. So maybe not the most glowing comparison to make for a team that's kind of struggling right now like the Big East, but it will be interesting to see how it all comes together with the new look Pac-12 next year.
DJ Bauer with us. Final one before you go. How do you get into this? There's so many people that do bracketology. I mean, you're writing. I don't even know how you're doing this. You're putting together these long write-ups. It's got to be taking a long time. How do you get into something like this?
Yeah. Obviously it just grows out of a passion of the game, loving college basketball. I just think what kind of spurred it for me is, one, obviously loving the game, loving the NCAA tournament and how wacky it is and all the numbers that go in behind to figuring out what teams get seeded and what locations they get sent to. It just kind of tickles the right spot in my brain. It's something that I've been doing for well over a decade now, dating back to high school. I still remember on the little laptops that our high school would loan us, in a Word document, making my Bracketology back then. And it's funny to look and see how it's grown in the 10 plus years since then. But yeah, just love of the game, love of just having an inquisitiveness about how all the pieces come together and everything. And I'm really looking forward. Countdown's on. We're a month and 2 days away from Selection Sunday. That's my second Christmas of the year. So absolutely going to be locked into a whole bunch of college basketball these next couple weeks.
I feel the same way, and we're curious here in San Diego if the Aztecs can find their way once again back into the field. But DJ, thanks for taking time for us. For our listeners, check out Bracketology.com for the latest update to DJ's bracket. Thanks, DJ. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, on the other side, we're going to hear from Carmelo Anthony as he gives us an explanation for the NBA All-Star Game format. Directly from Carmelo, here until 6 p.m. The San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. San Diego Sports 760 congratulates all of our winners of $5,000 in iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher, powered by Donors Choose. There's still time for you to nominate a public school teacher making a difference, and maybe they'll be one of our next winners of $5,000 to make over their classroom. You can help us say thank you to the educator shaping our future. Nominate your favorite teacher now at iHeartRadio.com/teachers. Brent, we have waited too long to hear from Carmelo. So what was this? Just like on social media, an explanation of the All-Star Game format coming up?
I saw it on YouTube.
Okay.
The NBA put it out because remember
Okay.
Carmelo's part of the Peacock
Broadcast
like
team.
pre and post game crew.
Yep.
So obviously there's more people like us that have no clue what the hell is going to happen on Sunday. So they must have just told Melo, gave him the sheet, and had him go out there and explain it, and just make like a quick little 1.5-minute video running down this weekend.
What's up, world? I'm Carmelo Anthony, and it's about that time. The NBA All-Star Game is right around the corner. You know the All-Star Game is always going to feature the most dynamic players. But this year, there's a twist. In the spirit of Olympic competition, we're going USA versus the world. I'm going to explain how it goes down. You with me? First, the teams. This is going to be a 3-team round-robin tournament. One team we're calling the USA Stars. These are the younger generation of All-Stars. So you know they'll be ready to make some noise. Then you have USA Stripes. These are the OGs from the States who have earned their stripes. And then, of course, there's the World Team. A super team made up of the NBA's best international stars. Each team would play each other one time. The top 2 teams would play in a winner-take-all championship game, with the winner being crowned All-Star Game champs. Now, if teams have the same record, we take it to the scoreboard. The team with the best points differential wins the top. These games will only be 12 minutes long, so the action is going to be quick, hard-hitting, and high-flying. And of course, it's all taking place at the Intuit Dome in LA. So you know the stars will be out to see the stars. Pride is on the line, and an All-Star Championship is in the air. Which team is ready to grab it? It's NBA All-Star 2026. It's USA versus the world. Tune in on NBC or Peacock Sunday, February 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern to find out.
All right. So we got an answer or two. One of which is stars are young stars from the U.S. Stripes are players that have earned their stripes. Okay.
Makes sense.
Now I've got a distinction. I'm making up like 25 and younger and maybe, 26 and older, whatever. Where they lost me is round robin, where you have 3 teams. So each team at the end of that has played twice. You're either 1-1, 2-0, or 0-2, right? Because you played 2 games. But there's a decent shot you have 3 1-1 teams. What I never like in that scenario is, okay, it's going to be stars versus stripes because they had a 4 more point difference than the world, and all the teams are 1-1.
Isn't that how the Vegas thing does it though?
Yeah, it does, but that's complete. That to me is for like basically you're doing that for like NIL dollars. At the end of the day, none of that really matters for San Diego State. It's like, did you go 2-1? Did you help your resume? That's how I look at that. You're playing 2 games based on point differential and a 3, like a round robin. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The games are 12 minutes in length. So I guess in theory, all we have is, how normally an All-Star game would be 4 quarters, right? 48 minutes. So now they've pared it down to 36 minutes, right? Because 2 12-minute games. Or is there 3 12-minute games? Because
No,
Stars
it had to
play
be 3.
Stripes.
Yeah.
Stars play World and Stripes play. Okay, so it's still 48 minutes of action because you have 3 12-minute games and the 4th 12-minute game, aka the 4th quarter, would be the championship. All right, well, I'm not as much of a hater right this second as I was maybe 24 hours ago. Do I love it? I don't love it. I like an All-Star game. I like East versus West. But I don't know. We'll see how it looks.
Yeah, I just go back to East versus West.
After all
that's just all the experimentation is over. Just go back to the East and West. There's nothing wrong with it.
What's wrong with US versus the world? And just but we want to have more All-Stars. Like there's all these American All-Stars. So what?
That's the other thing I thought was funny, how they split up the US teams, but then the world gets Melo quotes the super team.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, well, then why don't you just combine even if they did combine the two U.S.
You
teams, I
still
don't
like
think
the
they'd
world
beat the
team.
world. Yeah,
That's what
because the
I was
world
gonna
team's
say.
stacked, even though half of them aren't going to play. Because like Giannis is out,
And Shea's out.
Luka's out, Shea's out.
Yeah, so maybe the U.S. teams or one of the U.S. teams will win. That's a good point. But I kind of am with you. I kind of feel like the world team should win. All of the world stars against U.S. half. Just the teams are cut in half. So I feel like the world would have a distinct advantage. Wemby's playing, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we got the explanation. It's Sunday night. Again, they've gotten cute recently with All-Star games, whether getting rid of the Pro Bowl.
At least they won't score 180 points.
They won't score 180 points. The only sport that still just plays the sport is baseball, right? Because hockey's gotten cute over the years too. They've changed their formats around conferences, global, this, that, and the other. So, well, it's the world we live in. Such is life. All right. Remember what did we used to see this week sign that apocalypse is upon us? Was that Sports Illustrated? I'm pretty sure it was in Sports Illustrated, like in the 1990s. I've got a story I wanted to share. It's not really a back page story, but it's a bizarre sports story that tells us a little bit about where we are. And I'll discuss and explain on the other side. Plus, Brent's back page is coming up here until 6 on San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Chris Paul announced his retirement today from the NBA. Paul, who is 40, was a 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 9-time All-Defensive Team, 2006 Rookie of the Year, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and he was a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. San Diego State is back at Viejas Arena tomorrow night to take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins at 6 o'clock. John will have the tip after 7, and I believe it's a red out tomorrow, John. Is that correct? Yes, it is. We got a thumbs up. So it's a red out. Wear your red tomorrow for Valentine's Day. For victims of drunk and drugged driving, your grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call the 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Remind me, Brent, I've got a story to add to the back page. If it's not in your back page, I've got a back page story. And this is kind of like a John's back page sports story. So I said, like, this week's sign that apocalypse is upon us, but with like a sports.
I used to always love that, by the way.
Me too. Me too.
I forgot all about it until you brought it up. Now I'm going to go home and like Google and read old
I was going to
ones.
say, you could find it honestly on Google. You'd probably find some really fascinating ones. But like, here's the modern version, and this is to a T of what Sports Illustrated would have written in their magazine 30 years ago. Sac State is nearing a deal.
Shaq State.
Right, exactly. Because Shaq is like affiliated with their basketball team. Sac State, right? Sacramento State is nearing a deal to take their football program into the MAC conference, the Mid-American Conference. Now I get it. Cal, Stanford are in the ACC. This is USC is in the Big Ten, right? But like, hear me out for 1 second about this specific story. The Mountain West within the last year, with all the turnover, San Diego State going to the Pac-12 and others, the Mountain West went out and got Northern Illinois from the MAC. And now the MAC is going to go get Sacramento State from FCS in California, where you could just be like, hey, Sac State, maybe you should be in the Mountain West. And hey, Northern Illinois, you should be in the MAC.
Dude, we're looking for logic in a world where Stanford and California play in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah, it's a great point. I know. But this is almost like, okay, with Stanford and Cal, and I won't defend it because you're spot on. Stanford and Cal were like, listen, we need a life raft to remain in the power system where we could make a college football playoff, where we have the advantages. You know what I mean? All the advantages they were seeking, now is it ideal? Hell no. They're playing like volleyball in Pittsburgh. You know, they're playing baseball at Wake Forest. I mean, it makes no sense, but they're in a power league where they deemed it, the advantages are too significant to not be in the power league. Where Sac State and Northern Illinois are in the group of 6, and Northern Illinois was like, I got to leave the MAC for the Mountain West. And Sac State's going up from FCS to FBS with their football program, and they're going to pay $15 million to do it. Reportedly, they're going to pay $15 million to join the MAC to go play Miami of Ohio on a Tuesday night. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it makes sense. Like you said, I don't think any of it makes sense. If you're Sac State, they so desperately want to be in the FBS, and they wanted to be in the Pac-12. Pac-12 said no. I think then they wanted to be in the Mountain West. Mountain West says no. They want to be in the MAC. MAC's like, no. They're like, we'll give you $15 million. All right, we'll consider it.
I think with the state of college football these days, it's just, you know, if you're a school, if you know you're Sac State, you just want to get your foot in the door.
That's exactly what it is.
Just let a conference let you in.
Because then maybe you can eventually make your way back to
and
a Western League.
After a few years, you get built up and you show everybody that, look, we're not some joke. They're just trying to, you know, punch above our weight class. And then, you know, some other bigger conference might go, hey, Sac State, you know, you want to come play someplace a little bit closer, and then they'll just move.
That's a good point. Not just a bigger conference, but maybe a more geographically aligned conference. Like, there is a world. Like if Sac State was 10 years further in the process and they had a 10-year FBS program and they were winning 7-8 games every year, well, then they would have gotten consideration from the Mountain West or the Pac-12. But because they're still moving up, it's like they still need that proving ground before they get to their ultimate landing spot.
And it would have been different too if Sac State was like, you know, North Dakota State, like we brought up the other day, to where, you know, they're just so damn awesome that nobody can even touch them in their league, so they have to move up. So they already have a certain amount of respect from all the D1 schools, opposed to just, we're famous because Shaq's kid goes here and he donated a whole bunch of NIL money.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because it's like, North Dakota State's won all these national championships. Sacramento State, someone correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't. Like, they have desires to be at FBS. Seems like they have some money and backing behind them. It's become like this point of emphasis, so to speak, for their university to get to the highest level of Division I athletics. I just found it, I said this, I remember the day we were on the air, Brent, the day, this goes all the way back to USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12, the previous iteration of the Pac-12. It was John Wilner he sent out a tweet, and I'm paraphrasing now, but something along the lines of, the world as we know it is about to change, or the world is about to change. He broke the news. This was already, the wheels were in motion, but from a media side, John Wilner, Bay Area News Group, was the first to say USC and UCLA are leaving for the Big Ten. In that moment, was that before Texas and Oklahoma or after? It was after.
It was after.
So it actually goes back to Texas and Oklahoma. My point is, the wheels have been turning on realignment. Well, A, forever, but B, going back a half decade to Texas and Oklahoma announcing they're leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. And then the bigger earthquake, seismic shift, I think, was USC and UCLA, just because it was such a foreign concept to take Southern California and put it in like State College and West Lafayette and Madison. And now the ripple effects, the aftershocks, are Sac State, North Dakota State, Northern Illinois. Like, it's been playing out for 4 or 5 years. Like I always say about realignment, like it never does end, ever. And I don't know if I don't expect it ever to, truthfully.
I think it's gonna eventually all come back full circle.
Maybe,
because I said this when they all left, that with a couple exceptions, like the Ducks are going to be fine in the Big Ten.
They've been good, yeah.
They have nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
but like UCLA. And brought up Stanford and Cal,
maybe
some of Washington even. I think within
Rutgers.
the next handful of years, they're going to get lost in the shuffle. And for certain sports, that is going to not fly. UCLA basketball becoming an afterthought and just being, the 9th or 10th best team, at least in your conference almost every season. That's not going to fly. I kind of feel like in the next couple of years, between that and just the travel nightmare that some of these schools are going through, the ones that aren't Oregon and aren't USC, that are struggling and aren't winning, I can see them going, "Hey, Pac-12, you guys still got my room made up? Can we come back?"
Always a possibility. But just. Yeah, fascinating time. It's nothing new, and it still feels weird when you see some of the stories. I don't know, just the lack of geographic alignment, but such is the world that we live in, I guess, right now. So anyway, we started today by talking about AJ Preller and his possible extension, because Kevin Acee said last night in his recent reporting that multiple sources say that a deal could be done by Monday, when the full squad has its first workout. So we're still waiting. I thought maybe we'd get something today. With it being a Friday, we're heading into a holiday weekend. No such thing in baseball, obviously. They'll be working over the weekend. But I thought maybe we get the Friday news dump on Preller's contract. But we're going to have to wait at least another day or two on that.
They're throwing Preller a surprise party.
That's what
they wanted the whole crew to be there. So he's going to, show up at spring training on Monday, and they're going to go, "Surprise, here's your extension you've been waiting forever for."
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's still quizzical to me that it took so long, but the cliche would be all's well that ends well, if and when it gets done. And there'll be a day where he's no longer the GM. Like, I don't think he'll have a 25-year run. I mean, he's 10 plus years in. So, I mean, that would be comical to have said when he got here, like, he's going to be here 20 years. Like, no, he's not. That's just not how sports work. I think he's the second most tenured general manager in the sport right now, behind Brian Cashman. So, like, listen, there'll be a day it comes to an end. I just have argued all offseason. I don't think now is the time. I think with all the stuff that the franchise is dealing with, ownership change potentially, and just a lot going on. I mean, just what their financials are going to look like moving forward. I would allow him to steer the ship right now, and then if a year or 2 or 3 down the road, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. That's completely reasonable. At some point, you need to break through and get to a World Series. You can't just do this for forever. But right now, I think he is their best option to do the job that he's been doing. And, things change quickly in sports. I think you got to get to the postseason this year. I don't think it'll look great if they don't. But if he gets an extension right now, it's not going to be a 1-year extension. I'm assuming he's getting a 2+ year extension. That should secure his future beyond this year. I think once you extend him multiple years, AJ Preller will be here in 2027. So this just isn't tied to 2026. This is tied to 2027 and beyond. And we may have resolution on it again as soon as this weekend, maybe Monday. And then, of course, we're back with you to recap it all on Tuesday right here on San Diego Sports 760. All right, Brent's back page is coming up on the other side. We are here until 6 p.m. We do remind you, San Diego State back home tomorrow night against Nevada with pregame coverage at 6. And all of the call for you beginning right after 7 p.m. right here in your home for the Aztecs. San Diego Sports 760. We'll get to the back page on the other side. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, final time. San Diego Sports 760. Again, Aztec basketball tomorrow night. Hope you'll join us with pregame coverage beginning at 6 p.m. Aztecs and Nevada. Then Tuesday, when we get back after the long weekend, San Diego State plays Grand Canyon. So we'll have you covered this long weekend here on San Diego Sports 760. Do you want me to get to my back pages once you hit back page after your back page?
We can just do it at the same time.
We can go back and forth.
It'll be a group back page.
I like it. All right, let's get to it. All right, you get us started.
Did you know that we have vintage trolleys in San Diego?
What do you mean we have vintage trolleys? Like our trolleys are vintage?
As in we have old ass trolleys that they don't use regularly, but they bring them out on special occasions and holidays so you can go ride them. MTS maintains 3 vintage trolleys, 2 of them from the 40s and 1 from a new fleet that debuted in 1981. And they bring them out on certain days and holidays, and they released these schedule, and one of the days when you can ride the vintage trolleys will be on Monday for President's Day.
I did not know that. I had no idea.
Let's see here. They bring out the old vintage trolleys on select holidays to operate on the old Silver Line. It's the loop that takes passengers from American Plaza near Santa Fe Depot east to City College, south of the 12th and Imperial Transit Center. So I guess if you ride the Silver Line on Monday, you can ride on one of these vintage trolley cars from like the 40s.
That is news to me. And that's interesting. I never would have known that.
It's kind of neat, I guess, just to see the evolution of, what they look like now compared to what it was almost, 80 years ago.
Yeah, that is a long time. It's amazing to think that. So I'm not a trolley guy. You know what I mean?
I'm not, because it doesn't take me where I need to go.
Right.
Other than Petco, it doesn't take me anywhere. If the trolley came here and I could take the trolley to work every day, I'd take the trolley to work every day.
Right.
But
yeah, that's fair.
It doesn't, so I can't.
That's fair. Can I give you my first?
Yes.
I have 2 actually, but my first is, did you see, tell me if this is on your back page, Bad Bunny's grass costumes?
No.
So these costumes that people were dressed up as grass.
It's like trees or whatever it was.
They're being sold on eBay for $5,000. So each tree costume is on eBay. And I don't know if they're all up, but there's 112 watchers, for example, on one of the costumes where it was $5,000 or best offer. And that's available to purchase right now. If you got $5,000, you just want some fake grass costume that was used in the halftime on Sunday, it can be yours for $5,000.
Make a perfect Valentine's gift.
Will it? I don't think it will.
Hey, honey, instead of getting you jewelry,
I got you this big grass costume.
Yeah, you can be a Christmas tree for Halloween next year.
$5,000, too high or too low? Too high.
Yeah, way too high.
Yeah, it's a lot. All right, what else do you have?
Paramount is getting sent to launch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles inspired pizza restaurants. They're going to be worldwide.
That's kind of smart.
Yeah. They said, if you ever wondered what it'd be like to dine in a Ninja Turtles themed pizza restaurant, the fantasy is about to turn into reality. Earlier this week, the Hollywood Reporter revealed that Paramount is expanding their Ninja Turtle universe with new books, an animated series, and restaurants. There's going to be a handful of them that they're going to open. One is supposed to be in Santa Monica, and then they're going to have 2 international locations, one in Monterrey, Mexico, and one in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And they think if they go well, they might open up some more around the world. But I guess it's just, everything's supposed to be kind of turtle related. So they'll have, I'm sure it's going to be some sewer theme. They don't have pictures of anything yet. They just said that they're going to be Ninja Turtles themed pizza restaurants. So I think it's going to be kind of like what they do at Comic-Con sometimes when they have those pop-up restaurants that show up, like the Sonic one that you didn't go to.
I didn't go to that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it's going to be something like that. But yeah, so if you live close to Santa Monica, or once they put it in there, you go up to Santa Monica and Eat Ninja Turtle
I mean,
pizza.
I think that's really unique. I'm not a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guy, but I think it's pretty unique.
I was when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
when we were a kid. Yeah, everyone was into it when we were kids. You know me, I wasn't necessarily into it.
You were barely a kid.
I was barely a kid. I really was. I was into like Transformers for a
John
minute.
was doing people's taxes at 12.
Here's my next back page. All right. And it honestly, it kind of pissed me off when I saw this earlier today. Okay. So my first job out of college was working in minor league baseball. Did you know I worked in the minors?
I heard that somewhere.
But it was
I thought that was Jim.
in Lynchburg, Virginia for the Lynchburg Hillcats. Lynchburg, Virginia is known as the Hill City. And it's perfect name. It's generic, but it was like green and gold. Like they looked like the Oakland A's, but they were a Pirates affiliate at the time. And they've been an affiliate of a number of teams over the years. I don't even know who they're affiliated with now. They changed their name today. The Lynchburg Hillcats. They were the Lynchburg Hillcats for probably, I don't know, 35 years. They used to be like the Lynchburg Mets, but then they went to like a name, which got very commonplace in the minors. Today, they changed their name to the Hill City Howlers.
Okay.
And I don't like it. I don't like the logo. And you need to see the logos. So if you're watching or listening, Google Hill City Howlers. Look at this, Brent. There's like 4 or 5 alternate logos. It looks like it's like Friday the 13th. It's not just an alternate identity, though. It's the name of the team. And I know today's Friday the 13th, but they have like a mummy logo and like a gremlin. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all.
Is it the little wolf guy?
I think it's the little wolf guy, but then there's alternate marks as well. You see those?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? It's not good, is it?
They're just universal monsters because it's Dracula.
What are howlers? Like just
a werewolf, I imagine.
Okay.
Because they howl at the moon. You know,
because are there werewolves in the hills of Lynchburg, Virginia?
There could be.
I just thought it was a stretch. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the name Hillcats. Kind of sound like Hellcat.
Yeah, but it's minor league baseball. It's all about the gimmicks and the promotions. It's not necessarily about the game.
But this is like a full name brand change. It's like,
you know, I remember we used to always, the big thing in Madison was the Madison, what do they call that? The Mallards.
Yeah.
Which
independent ball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone loved the Madison Mallards because they had this section called the duck blind where you paid like $20 and it was all you could eat and all you could drink. So everyone would just go there for the all you can eat, all you can drink. But you would go and see all the various promotions, and like every other week it'd be, you know, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, or Hacksaw. There's some random old professional wrestler that would show up every week to promote stuff. So, you know, that's kind of minor leagues all about, you know, the promotions and stuff like that.
It is. I just don't like it. It's like I get.
And
it
how many teams change their name just for like 2 weeks
for
just
the
for
day,
promotion?
which I'm cool with. Like if you're going to change your name to like the, you know, from the San Diego Padres to like the America's Finest Tacos, you can do it for a night. But to change the actual name of the team from the Padres to the Tacos, you know, it's like a little extreme. Is the way?
Is that a spoiler for the Padres City Connects?
Yeah, have you heard? When are we going to get that? I mean,
what happens first? AJ signs an extension, or we get to see the City Connects?
What happens first? The Padres win a World Series, or
maybe
AJ
he'll do
signs
both. Maybe AJ will sign his new contract wearing a City Connect uniform.
By the way, my neighbor just told me my garage has been open all day. It's a little strange.
Yeah, there's movers at your house all day. It's weird.
Yeah, that's really odd. All right, if you missed anything today, sportssd.com, iHeartRadio app, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, or Spotify. For Sammy Long, who was with us earlier, and Brent Sperry, I'm John Schaefer. We will see you tomorrow for Aztecs basketball with pregame coverage at 6 p.m. on San Diego Sports 760.